Hello friends and welcome. My name is Papa. Today we're playing some more Higurashi Chapter 8, Matsuribayashi. Before we get into what happened last time, this game has some pretty mature themes, so I want to give out these trigger warnings. If any of these things are not for you, please by all means find some place you'd rather spend your time this evening. This game includes themes such as death, murder, blood, gore, dismemberment, kidnapping, sexual abuse, physical abuse, child abuse, suicide, self-harm, body horror, and especially any of those things against a minor. If you missed anything that I just said, either feel free to ask me to repeat it or check down below where I have a list of all the trigger warnings. Alright, so last time, what happened? The plan kicked off into action, 48-hour plan where they tell people that Rika's been dead for 48 hours. So the police, which is Oishi and I think 3 of his friends, release that they found Rika's body, and then they take it back oh, it's a mistake, we're still doing the autopsy, nothing's confirmed yet. It's enough that all these secret organizations are like, she's probably dead. And Takano is freaking out because if Rika's been dead for 48 hours, that ruins their plan. So they're trying to find out where she is, who could possibly know this. So they're looking for Tomitake. And they eventually find and capture him. And then they get suspicious about the doctor, because they're like, he's been going into her house every day, saying oh, she's got a cold, but they'll be alright, they just need rest. So they realize that either he's been lying to them, or this is a police hoax, or both. It's both. Plot twist. So Irie catches on to this and gives the secret code to a karate dude whose name I forget, Karate Cop, and the 2 of them get out there. Irie is followed, shot at, gets hit, it gets in a car crash, but they all eventually make it to Mion's house, except there's a tracker on Irie's collar that he doesn't know about that's hidden there, and that leads the mountain dogs there. So then the mountain dogs try to enter. They cut the power, they blow up the front door with a bomb, go inside, guns blazing. Inside, they're trying to escape down the secret hatch. Shion and her bodyguard try to hold them off with AKs, but of course, 2 people against a whole, I think they say about 20 to 30 people. There's just no chance, so eventually they're incapacitated. And they use them as threats to basically be like, hey, if the doctor and Rika don't come up, we're going to start throwing your friends down the well. So Rika eventually convinces them, hey, just let me come up, leave the others. And, don't throw my friends down the well. If you do, I'm just going to bite my tongue and then jump off into this well, and you'll never see me. You can't prove that I'm dead or alive. And yeah, that'll ruin your plans. And then, with help from Hanyu, to convince them, that happens. So Rika comes out. I'll answer your question after the summary. Hi, Samuses. Sorry to hear that your client is already being idiotic. Yeah, it comes out. Karate Dude finally arrives and kicks the butts of everyone there. They go off, and we're just in the aftermath where they've gotten rid of everyone. Everyone here is relatively safe and healthy, but they know it's a ruse now that Rika's still alive. Well, Samuses, one, I have people I can complain to. Usually that's like my project manager or my wife, who also works at the same company, and that. Ah, okay. But yeah, usually I have someone else I can complain to. Or I go and do... I try and put my energy into something constructive. Working out. So I used to do like a cardio, mixed martial arts cardio thing, but lately my wife and I have been doing bouldering, which is a form of rock climbing. So that's what we've been doing. Mind test server, half under. Okay, people who half understand things are the most dangerous. The most dangerous clients are the clients who think they know what they're doing because they've like dabbled in like building a website or something, because they know enough that if you're like trying to stretch the truth on something to like buy more time, they know, but they also don't know enough that if they're like, oh, this can be done, you know, like Instagram does it or Facebook does it, or you know, some this website or this app does it, so they assume if someone else can do it, it must be easy. Yeah. We had a client. Obviously, I'm not allowed to say who the client was or what they did, but they had a very complicated app. It was a mobile app, and whoever designed this was crazy. So it was a mobile app, but the front end code was compiled and served from the back end. So like you're loading in a web page, and normally what you'd expect is the web page UI logic would be on, you know, your mobile or your website, and any back end logic would be in your API or some other third party thing that you're using. What they did is the front end was the minimalist framework possible, and it would have like a add view here, and that view would pull from the API, and it was just so painful. That just sounds like their environment problem. To my knowledge, OpenGL is still basically the standard. Like, I can't imagine anyone dropping OpenGL, like, anytime soon. Yeah, maybe... I don't know how well you know, like, the moderators in this, or how, like, active or useful the moderators are in this server, but maybe complain to them, like, hey, this person's spamming nonsense, and it's just getting really irritating. Yes, I love when my peers get rejected because I didn't submit them. Yeah, like... Yeah, you can't reason with people like that. Yeah. Akasaka, that's Karate Cop's name. Okay, if this dude is complaining about PRs, has he submitted an issue on their GitHub? Like, if he's like, oh, my code won't go in, then that's when you create an issue. And it might, like, your issue might be turned down. Or you might get told, like, yeah, that's an issue, but it's very low priority and we won't get to it for like a year and a half. Why doesn't he just play Minecraft then? In the basement, the club members were talking about their grand counterattack. Rika was a little disappointed that she couldn't have joined them. But she was happy that Akasaka told her what she'd been waiting to hear. Rika told them about how heroic he'd been, and he got a little embarrassed. Kasai, I also couldn't remember his name. Kasai, Shion's bodyguard. He was doing alright. Shion wasn't doing too well. Of course, it wasn't life-threatening, but she couldn't hear well in her left ear, probably due to being so close to an explosion. To test her hearing, Mion went around to Shion's left and whispered some dirty words. She seemed to be able to hear them fairly well. Of course, she might have been hearing through her right ear, though. Shion decided to lie down on the tatami mattress in the torture room. Oh, the torture room seems like such a great place to just take a nap. Well, Irie kept an eye on her. And I take it this is either the definitive mind test group, or it's like a Discord for a mind test server that you like enough that you're not gonna like switch to a different one. Mion was very worried, but Shion told her that she was okay and forced her to go ahead with the next operation. This sounds like an issue for the mods, and like you said, the mods were involved in a 3-hour circular discussion with them. Which means the mods know how annoying this person is. Mion complained that Shion didn't understand her feelings. Now, they'd have to come up with an idea to rescue Tomitake from the clinic. They had Akasaka and Kasai on their side, both of whom were used to battles. Also, they had Irie, who knew about the secret basement of the clinic. They'd have to get moving quickly, but they had to at least have a plan. It's almost 10:30 a.m. It's what they had gone through. They were exhausted, and it felt like it was almost evening. They were at school. It'd only be the second or the third period. They had to pull themselves together. I feel the poor teacher right now is like, where is half my class? They had to regain their fighting spirit. Irie checked Shion's left ear with a pen light.
耳鼻科の先生でないとわかりませんが、運が悪ければ鼓膜が破れている可能性もあります。頭痛やめまいはありますか？
いいえ、全然へっちゃらです。
Irie wet his handkerchief and wiped Shion's face gently.
驚いてます？ひなみ沢ファイターズのマネージャーに銃撃戦ができて。
ええ、驚いています。あなたが死ぬ気だったとは。前原さんに聞きましたよ。
うわ、ああいう言葉ってその場ではかっこいいけど、生き残っちゃうとめちゃくちゃ恥ずかしいですね。やだな。
To me, that should be like the number one thing. Like, you join a server, we are not Minecraft. Something happens to you and I live. My sister will never forgive me for that. I don't have my loved one anymore, but Sis does.
茶化しっこなしです。あなたの思い人というのは、サトシ君のことですね。
さあ、どうでしょうね。
Oh yeah, I believe you, but people just don't like reading. Or they just think in their minds like, well, it's similar enough, like it should just happen.
今頃どこにいるやら。生きてるのか死んでるのかもわかりませんけど。
生きています。
Shion's thoughts stopped in their tracks when Irie answered immediately.
北条聡君は生きています。
Minecraft rehab?
彼は去年のあの日、不幸な振動がたたり、
I'd love if the mods made a channel that's just like a pound Minecraft dash, basically just features that are missing from mine tests that are in Minecraft. But it's one of those ones where once you type it in and hit enter, you can't see it because it's just moderator view. And then on the moderator side, they just all have it ignored and it like instantly deletes your message. Shion and the other club members had already told Shion about the current situation, so she kind of understood what he meant.
さとこちゃんと同じ薬で治療できると思いました。ですが、さとこちゃんが治療できたのは極めて幸運なケースだったようで。
Honestly, when I first joined the server, and I don't join too many servers because I don't have time to participate in a whole lot of servers. Like, unless I'm modding for you, or this is something I'm like this is something I do all the time, or something like I'm taking part in. Your server has the least number of notifications of any server that I don't just have fully muted. That's the other thing, is a lot of servers I just have them fully muted. And like every now and then I'll check and I'll be like, oh, like anyone post anything cool in this server? And they'll just like look through and catch up. But I almost never like talk in them, and like if I find something that's related to like that person, like for example, Zero Confidence, like if I find a raccoon meme, I've got I have his Discord, but I have it fully muted. But if I find a raccoon meme, I'll go and I'll post it and see if like what other raccoon memes are there and stuff like that.
そしてその治療は今も続いているのです。
サトシ君、生きてるの？
今まで話せなくてすみません。サトシ君は四角角にいます。
Shion and Irie returned from the torture room. Shion looked very serious, as if she'd gained the determination to fight. Keiichi and the others were just talking about how the enemy found that they were.
入江先生の着衣に発信機か何かがつけられていることは先生の私服ではなく、診療所で持たされるものや着せられるものにです。
だとすると、この白衣くらいですな。
監督、ちょっとボディチェックします。
Shion checked Irie over like an inspector at an airport, and she found a little button on the back side of his collar. It was a little round button. There's no reason why a button like this would be on the back of the collar.
こいつが発信機でしょう。連中はこいつを信頼してるから、直接尾行しなくてもここを突き止められたんです。やられたわ。となりゃ、このボタンがある限り、陽動作戦が可能になるってことだね。
ボタンを持ったおとり隊が敵をおびき寄せ、その隙に手薄の診療所を襲い、富武さんを助け出す。それが最善でしょう。
となれば、そのおとり隊が陽動するには、私の裏山が一番でございますわね。
そうだな。あそこなら敵を引っ張り回せるぜ。しかもあれだけの山だからな。敵も相当の手勢を集めるだろう。その分、診療所がガラ空きになる。
読み切れないのは、どの程度敵が診療所に残るかだ。診療所には敵にとっても重要な富武氏がいる。相応の守備を残す。
So what did he share? What is it?
となれば、富武より美味しい餌をおとりと一緒にするのがいいのです。大丈夫ですか、リカ？はいです。みんなと一緒で貞子の裏山なら絶対に捕まりませんです。
裏山に精通してるのはこの中では部活メンバーだけだね。おとりは部活メンバーが引き受けるといいかもしれない。
Okay. Did they just share it like with no context, or what are they saying about it? Because I could imagine that if you're into like Minecraft and Minetest and voxel-based games in general, that you might be interested in that. But if they're like, hey, this game has like this feature from Minecraft, why don't you guys? That's a different story.
そうだね。
This that second bit is not necessary. You could have just said, hey, like this thing's cool, like I found this thing, it looks pretty cool.
その間に大人部隊は診療所を奇襲。
But I also imagine that surely there's like a side discussion rather than like the general channel for that kind of stuff for media. Other non-mind tests. Yeah.
翔さんは大丈夫？
赤坂さんのお目こぼしがあれば警察の方と聞いておりますので。
Yes, I spoke while loading a shotgun.
今はオフですので。
Akusaka replied while checking an automatic pistol. He hadn't used this particular gun before, but he was used to handling guns. He was prepared to fire, too. Ah, yes, the three genders: mind test, not mind test, and other not mind test. Irie tried to memorize how to remove the safety, but he looked nervous.
赤坂さんは機関銃の経験は？
ありません。拳銃だけです。
では慣れたものがよろしいでしょう。弾倉は十分に。弾詰まりに備え、同じ銃をもう一丁。
笠井さんはこれはショットガンですか？
奇数発目はスラッグ弾です。面制圧も壁抜きもできます。
おお、散弾銃の立つって通り名は聞いてたけど、本当にショットガン使いなんですね。
散弾銃は恐ろしい武器です。
Guys, did you know shotguns are very deadly? This guy said so, so it must be true. You had fallen off the side and were sending messages from the void. And I think at this point you've been in the void for 4 or 5 weeks.
ですから相手に当てずとも降伏させることもできます。あと皆さん、防弾ベストがありますので着てください。
Because I sound very dependable, but at the same time you reminded everyone that this operation would be a very dangerous one. It wasn't a simple fist fight. Even a veteran soldier can die in a gun battle. Always a chance of death, regardless of how well trained you are. In fact, Kasai and Akusaka were the only people who could be depended upon. Kasai talked Irie out of carrying a gun because it might be dangerous for him to have one. Someone could get injured by friendly fire. Mian suggested that maybe there should be more people on the team, but both Kasai and Akasaka refused, because those who couldn't even handle guns at all might end up as dead weight.
なら、私が行くしかないですね。第一、火力が足りなさすぎです。ファイヤーサポートに私がイングラムでも持ってきましょう。
でもシオン、お前耳大丈夫なのかよ？
ええ、もう治っちゃいました。ケロッとね。ご心配かけてすみませんでした。シオン、今私が何て言ったか聞いてた？え？あ、あはは、嫌だな。聞こえてましたよ。
Mian had tricked her. Mian didn't say anything. Shion still couldn't hear it of her left ear.
シオン、危険だよ。正直に言って、おとりに混じるのも危険だと思ってる。シオンはどこかに身を隠してて。おねえ、聞いて。私、どうしても診療所に行かなければならない用事ができたの。でも、それを今話したら、里子まで来ると言い出す。それはダメ。こっちは室内戦、向こうも撃ってくる。それって、
Neon sensed it. She sensed the reason why Shion had to go to the clinic. That was why she didn't say anything more. If she was in Shion's position, she would go, even if neither of her ears could hear.
危険ですわよ、シオンさん。考え直してくださいまし。
サトコ、シオンは救出隊に回る。サトコはおとり隊のエースなんだよ。自分の仕事に専念して。
しーちゃん。
レナさんならわかるよね。私が死ぬ気じゃないってこともね。
わかってる。こういう時の女の子ってね、絶対に死なないから。
ですよね。殺されたって死ぬもんか。
Shion and Rena gave each other a high five.
決まったようですね。では、もう動き始めましょうです。シー、ボタンをこっちで預かるです。
はい、これ。頑張ってね、リカちゃま。
シーも頑張って。シーが強く強く信じてきた奇跡だから、今この瞬間に叶うのです。だからきっとこれはシーのために神様が微笑んでくれたチャンスなのです。
信じなかった日もあった気がする。それを誰かに諭された日もあった気がする。信じ続けるって大変なことだよね。
でもあなたは信じ続けました。信じなかったことを悔い信じました。だから訪れた今日をどうか大切に。今日を呼び寄せたあなたの強い意志の前に、目の前の苦難はもはや苦難ではない。
あんた、お姉の新しい友達ですか？名前は知らないけど、ありがとう。うまくいきそうな気がします。
うまくいきますですよ。お社様のお墨付きなのです。
Alright, we've split the party. This always ends well when you split the party. Mountain dogs had retreated and reorganized their units. They are now ready to attack again. Kona was furious at them for not being able to bring R back to the clinic, even though they had her in their hands. She gave an order to capture her with all the Mountain Dog's forces put together. Their vehicles were at the clinic, and they were all standing by for the order to attack. Kona wasn't the only one who was furious. Okanagi was as angry as her. That rookie policeman from 5 years ago had grown, and even made Okanagi yield. He couldn't accept that he was defeated, so he was bent on revenge. The reason why the order to attack was held off was because of the signal from the transmission device in Irie was momentarily interrupted. They interpreted it to mean that Irie had gone even farther down into the basement. The Mountain Dogs assumed that the club members would go even further underground and try to escape using some kind of secret passageway. That passageway couldn't be that long. They'd have to come up to the surface eventually. The Mountain Dogs are planning to catch them as soon as they surfaced. The villagers were too busy with finishing setup for the festival, so they had no idea what was going on. At this time, the Mountain Dogs had shut down the telephone network. They were afraid the club members would call the police. The only way into the town was being watched by a blockade unit, so the club members couldn't escape that way. R and her friends had to come up to the surface. They couldn't be thinking of staying underground until things settled down. Their lifeline, Tomitake, was in captivity. They couldn't be stupid enough to think of attacking the clinic to rescue him. More than likely, they would try to escape from the village on foot. They'd probably call the police to help them. The patrol unit had several cars driving around the village, their eyes peeled for the signal of the transmitter, or those on the run. It was time to wait patiently. The battle had returned to the starting point, and the balance of power was even again.
いつまでも息を潜められるわけねえんだ。じれずに待て。絶対に出やがる。ところでうちのお姫様はどうした？
富武兄に尋問中です。 どうやら説得を試みているようです。
こうなっちまったら穏便に済ませるには監査役を抱き込むほかねえからな。生かして捕らえたのはでかかったぜ。お姫様はいねえし、東京からの電話もねえ。ようやく落ち着いて冷房を浴びられるってもんだな。
隊長、東京から無線です。野村さんからサンサ宛てでなく隊長宛てです。
やれやれ、電話がダメなら無線かよ。さて、東京の女王様がこの後に及んで俺に何のお話ですかね。山犬のおこのぎです。どうぞ。
Tomitake was being held in a small meeting room. He was shoved under a desk. He was restrained so tightly that he couldn't even turn around. Shion was sitting in a chair next to the table, staring at a whiteboard. It outlined the research plan that was to be shut down. Shion wasn't really reading it, she was just staring. Neither of them said a thing. Silence filled the meeting room. I still think you should complain to the mods. Like they've clearly spent time with this person and know that they're being a jerk. So if there's enough people being like they're being disruptive, maybe they'll kick them out, or maybe they'll. Yeah. I mean, you could still say he's being annoying, and like by being so like contrarian and wasting like 3 hours of people's time, that it's like bloating the server with messages and just making it not a fun place to be. Like, even if you're not breaking rules, like most people want their server to be a fun place to be. Are the mods on this server under a lot of... Like, are they overworked, basically? Are they overloaded? Tomitake didn't reply. Whose butt are we kicking? Well, Samus is trying to kick the butt of annoying person in a Discord server, and we're trying to rescue our friend who's been captured by a nurse and her goon squad. But we've reached the seduction portion of the story. And yes, happy birthday to Panic. Only your insensitivity can give me comfort. Doing okay. Yeah, could be better, it could be worse. It's been a long, busy week. And next week, I literally have something every day, I think, except for Thursday.
捕虜は名前と階級と認識番号しか喋っちゃいけないことになってるんでね。
Hung her head. Yeah, so like I was working today. My boss asked me to put in some paid overtime this weekend. And then starting tomorrow, I've got something basically every day.
ごめんなさい。
いいよ。
And the paid overtime is fine. I could have said no to it. He's a pretty understanding guy. So that was my choice to put in the work.
それを求めたわけじゃないさ。
コーヒー飲む？
遠慮するよ。この状態でトイレの世話になりたくないからね。
It's hardly a conversation. Takano was happy that Tomitake had finally replied. However, that wouldn't solve any of their
僕を
problems.
殺すしかないならそれも構わないさ。捕らえられた時にすでにその覚悟はできてる。
そうね。私も二郎さんを今夜殺すつもりだったから。
Jeez. That is a lot of work.
あなたにその覚悟があって嬉しいわ。
ならよかったよ。この覚悟が無駄にならなくて済む。
ねえ、死にたくないと思う。
Yeah, like my work isn't physically draining, but it is mentally draining, especially talking to people. Like, I had situations where I was talking with I had four different threads going at once that I was trying to pay attention to. And it's not physically draining, but man, your head is just turns to mush.
あなたが私の味方になると誓ってくれれば、私はあなたを死なせずに済むの。上はあなたを生かす価値はないって言ってるけど。
上は誰だい？
知らないわ。私と接触するエージェントは野村と名乗ってるけど、私も素性はよく知らないわ。
でも手を組む相手に足ると思う程度には話をしたんだろ？
数度ね。おしゃべりをしただけよ。今にして思うと、私を利用したいという魂胆が見え見えだった。でもなぜかあの時は彼女だけが私のことを理解してくれるってそう思ったのよ。
わかるよ。君に誰かの助けが必要な時期があったことは知っている。その時君のそばにいるのが僕でありたかった。
そうね。
I love how they just didn't want to draw a background for this. They just left it as a dark screen.
また誰も死んでない。
これから殺すわ。
東京には君の黒幕もいれば、それと対立する黒幕もいるが、ほとんどの上層部は今回の件をうやむやにして終わらせたいと思っているはずだ。高野さんはもう全てが手遅れだと思っているだろうけど、まだなんとかなるんだ。まだ取り返しがつく。なかったことにできる。
そうして祖父が築き上げたひなみ沢症候群の研究も。
高野さん、君は何がどうなれば満足だったんだい？
Kano closed her eyes for a bit while she came up with an answer. Her grandfather's research had been insulted. She wanted those with higher positions of authority to take it seriously. Nomura could make that happen. The operation was enacted. The higher-ups of the country would have had to read the article. They would have to believe what's in it. It will authorize the execution of the emergency manual. And yes, that would create an irreversible disaster. Just kill 2,000 people. At the same time, the disaster would prove that her grandfather's article had merit.
それで君は満足だったね。
ええ、満足よ。それが高野美代の生を受けた理由だから。
前に聞いたね。なら君はこの作戦が終わったら消えてしまうわけだね。高野美代の目的は達せられ、地上からなくなり、君は田無美代子。それが本当の君の名前のはず。
how long it had been since she heard that name, Takano closed her eyes slightly.
そうね。私はもうすぐ田無美代子に帰るのね。
田無美代子という少女は両親を失って施設に送られた。そしてそこで不幸のどん底に落ちて死んだ。
ええ、言ったわ。私はあの日のあの暗闇の中にもちろさんは経験ある？
Takano told Tomitake about her horrible experiences, which were simply unimaginable for normal people.
もう一度あそこに戻って今度はおじいちゃんに助けられずに死ぬの。そうすれば私はここにいない。私がいなければ入江期間もなくこんな
君は死ぬ気だね。
作戦が終わったらいろいろとご褒美があることになってるけどあまり信じてない。ある日突然ホームでドンと突き落とされるんじゃないかしら。
君には心を許せる味方はいないのか？
クライアントは所詮クライアント、味方じゃないわね。でも山犬は味方よ。彼らが私の靴を舐めたくなるくらいの金を弾んでやったからね。
でも心は許せないだろ。
味方は味方よ。あなたを捕らえ今から R たちも捕らえようとしている。私の役に立ってくれてるわ。
それは今の君に必要な味方じゃない。
そうね。今の私に必要な味方じゃない。
Ano paused. Because Tomitake had just said exactly what she had been thinking. Since the day Tomitake disappeared, she had been feeling restless. Takano had to admit that she needed Tomitake.
ジローさん。
Yeah, and this I'd mentioned something similar, that if they're like repeatedly saying like there are these issues that exist, or they keep saying stuff that just like doesn't make sense, like they were about the pull request and stuff like that, especially if the mods have already called them out on that, then maybe if you complain about it. Like, if they've complained if they've called them out multiple times, and you said these people follow the letters to a T, then maybe they'll ban them.
山犬は
That'd be nice.
何億円かのお金で転んでくれたわ。まだ私の手元には1億ちょっと残ってる。あなたはいくら払えば転んでくれるの？
君が一番欲しいものがいくらで買えるかを考えてみ。
こんな時にキザな例えだこと。お金では買えないって言わせたいのね。
諦めるんだ。山犬は飼いならせても僕は飼いならせない。
Yeah, that is tough. You need a car to get a job, but you need the job to afford to fix the car.
それを転ばせたいと言ってるの？あなたが望むならお金だけじゃない。何でも与えるわ。私の髪の毛一本からつま先の先端まであなたのものにしていい。靴を舐めろと言うなら今この場で舐めてもいいわ。それでもまだ足りない。
Tomitake didn't reply. It wasn't affirmation by silence, but a signal to Takano that he'd already told her everything he meant to say, the most saddening form of silence for her.
あなたより毎朝早く起きて朝食を作るわ。待ち合わせ場所には必ずあなたより先に来る。二度とあなたを待たせて試すような真似をしない。それでもダメなの、ジローさん。
Tomitake didn't say a word. He couldn't see her face under the desk. He could sense it. This wasn't the time to say anything to her. Remaining silent was the only thing he could do. Suddenly, the phone rang. Kano sniffled once and picked it up.
そう。わかったわ。今すぐ行くわ。
Kano stood up as she put down the
が
phone.
発見されたわ。入江の発信機の反応も一緒。街道が封鎖されていることを知ってて、山中を徒歩で脱出するつもりのようね。山狩りには手こずりそうだけど、人目がないのは私たちに好都合だわ。じゃあね、二郎さん。なんとなく、これがあなたとできた最後のおしゃべりになるような気がする。最後に、あなたから言葉がもらえなくて、残念よ。
And still, Tomitake stayed silent. Kano ran out of the room. It didn't look like she was hurrying back to work.
連中ははじめ近くの山中に出現し村中に出たようです。村人に接触して助けを求めようとしたのかもしれませんが、偵察車両の1台が逃走車の一部と R を発見追跡。一時期 R と発信機は別行動しましたが、地図の山中で合流しました。
チリジリになったのが合流できたということ。
Does anyone know off the top of their head how to download a Discord image if it's not letting you? Right.
I did it!
You got it? Okay, never mind. What did you end up doing?
You have to press the jump to message.
Yes, I see your stretch, Panic. I will do that. Nope, not backing up over the cat. Hurt him. Where are your feet? Okay. Oh. Hi, cat. Stretch with me. Okay, yeah. You went down, there you go.
I can't see you stretch. You have to stretch your arms.
Probably up too high. Better. I see your message, Samus. I will read it when I get closer. Oh, I can see it's an @panic. Here's like right in the door frame now, so you can see inside and outside. Alright, there was your stretch. Have you stolen my chair? What is this chair? You still have to keep looking. That's unfortunate. Replacing the whole engine's already so much work. For it to only like last an hour.
Eh. 連中は逃走路について十分な打ち合わせをしてやがったんちゅうことでしょうな。山の中なら地の利があると踏んでやがるに違いない。ブッシュが深ければ武器の効果は激減する。あの空手野郎の考えそうなことですね。
Okunogi was determined to catch them this time. Kept saying I was simply caught off guard before.
今度はもう逃がせないわよ。ひなみ沢でならともかく、沖宮に入られたらもうどうにもならない。
わかってます。向こうに地の利がある山中とあっちゃ。こちらも躊躇したらアウトですが、全力投球でいきましょう。全般で包囲、圧殺します。聞こえてるな、全般。こいつはサッカーだ。敵はゴールエリアに侵入してる。ゴールは沖宮だ。絶対に許すな。特にあの空手野郎で、絶対に仕留めてやる。
大鳥了解。
ウグイス了解。ビバリ了解。
白鷺了解。
行くぞ。山犬の総力戦だ。こいつがしくじればうちらは積まれてゲームオーバーだ。
その通りよ。もう後がない。私も出て陣頭指揮を取るわ。富武はここに置いていっても大丈夫。
大丈夫ですんね。完全武装の保安隊員が8人もおりますんね。その倍の完全武装兵が来てもしのげます。それよりも問題なのはあの空手野郎です。奴を侮ることはできませんぜ。
The security unit guarded the basement of the Erie Institute, which was the heart of the organization. Therefore, they were armed more heavily than anyone else in the Mountain Dogs. Okunogi's confidence in the security unit and his newfound obsession with defeating Akasaka made the diversionary plan a success. At the same time, that meant the decoy members have to deal with the full force of the Mountain Dogs. Dogs' white vans ran through the village. They couldn't fire shots outside. All members were carrying stun guns that fired electric needles. While poor on range, they could subdue a target instantly. Flip of the switch, they could change between merely stunning or killing their target. Perfect weapon for people like the Mountain Dogs. They just got like the Star Trek phasers. They've got them set to stun for now. Vans separated into groups and headed for the mountains. They were planning to surround their enemy and then smoke them out.
隊長、前半作戦開始位置に到着しました。
さすがに展開が早いぜ。サンサ、全般にありがたい訓示を頼みます。
高野よ。
When did Takano have time to do a clothing change?
R だけは生かして捕らえること。他は殺してしまっても構わないわ。この山から逃がしてはダメ。この山で今日の戦いすべてに決着をつけるのよ。
ウグイス、ヒバリ、白鷺、山狩りを開始しろ。大鳥はゴールキーパーで予備兵力を務める。緊急展開が可能なように常時待機しろ。
大鳥セブン了解。
さあ、追っ始める。
Mountain dogs started marching, spreading out in a line with a few meters between them. This mountainside was a savage land where not even the villagers would dare tread. There are some trails, but no paved roads for human beings. It required an enormous amount of diligence and patience to hunt on a mountain like this. All the dogs were very nervous. They were told that most of their enemies were children. There were still a few well-trained adults with them. In addition, they were supposedly armed quite heavily, and they knew the layout of the terrain quite well. It's obviously going to be a tough battle.
おこのぎ、山狩りってのは普通どのくらいの人数がいるの？
一概には言えませんが、多ければ多いほどいいでしょうな。山犬の人数じゃ全員集めても全く足りません。
でも向こうも少人数なんだからそう不利な条件じゃないでしょ。ほらよく言うじゃない。守備を崩すには3倍の兵力がいるって。こっちはさらにその倍以上いるんだ。
まあ数万の兵力の場合ならそういう数式になるでしょうが。なら今回の山狩り、おこのぎはどれだけの兵力がいると見てる？何でもありってことでです。
何でもありって意味がわからない。どのくらいが適正な兵力なの？
今朝の政治的奇襲も含めて向こうの指揮官は相当優秀です。そして火器取り扱いのベテランが最低2、近接格闘のベテランが最低1。
そこまでは認めるけど、あとは所詮子供でしょ。
あとは子供のようですが、多分ここに逃げ込んだからには彼らのテリトリーでしょう。地の利が十分な子供一人はよく訓練された強襲偵察隊一個小隊に匹敵します。サンサが考えてますより相当厄介な相手ですわ。
それを制圧するのにどの程度の兵力が必要だっていうの？
山岳歩兵が1個師団。ああ、師団だけどは山犬が3つ4つくっついて大体。
Math. Let's say it's 4 in a battalion. 4 battalions in a regiment, so that makes a regiment 16 people. And then 4 of those, so that's what, 64 people.
30倍の兵力が必要だというの？
もちろんそれだけじゃ足りません。砲兵陣地に要請して山ほどの事前砲撃が必要ですが、航空支援が得られるならファントムにナパームもばらまかせたいところですよね。
冗談じゃないわ。そんな兵力ここには
I
ない。
love how they're seriously saying, like, if we could do anything we wanted, let's just like napalm strike these kids and have advancing artillery.
じゃあそれにはるかに満たない山犬で山狩りをしたらどうなるっていうの？
まあ楽じゃないでしょうな。
Okanogi laughed boldly. He said it wouldn't be easy. He also seemed to be implying that he was the only one capable of doing it.
連中のテリトリーでしょうが、逃げ込んだのはついさっきです。陣地もなけりゃトラップ設置の暇もないはずだ。
We also have a tracking device that tells us exactly where they are.
地の利を生かすには時間が足りないはずです。
As Takano listened to Okanagi's explanation, she felt a little anxious. When we pretended to be friendly with Satoko a long time ago, she used to tell Takano all about her mountain. Takano remembered how Satoko told her about all kinds of traps she'd set up. She couldn't recall which mountain Satoko was talking about.
リバルより本部、標的の一部を発見。R は視認できない。現在追跡中。
人質にできれば十分よ。R がいなくても捕らえて。
ウグイス、聞こえるか？近隣の班を応援に回して退路を立て。
ウグイス了解。バックアップする。
そりゃそうだよね。退路勝ちたいよね。
Some fallen trees were leaning against a much larger pine tree, forming a natural scaffold. A small hut made out of plywood had been built on top of them. This was one of Satoko's many secret bases. When did Satoko have time to build many secret bases, complete with like you can see it's got like an eaves trough, like it's got a proper roof on it that's not made out of plywood. And unlike the windows, it's not just corrugated sheet metal nailed to it. The perfect spot since man could see the foot of the mountain well.
すごいね。みーちゃんの予想通りだね。
さて、我が部にどの程度叶うか、お手並みを拝見しようかね。
レナたち、勝てるかな？かな？
なーに言ってんだか。向こうの指揮官は無能だね。私たちを攻めるなら山岳訓練を修了したベテラン歩兵が一個師団はいるね。それをせいぜい中隊規模でとはね。未熟にも程があるよ。さーて、何人が私たちを相手にしてこの山を無事に降りられるかな。
クソだれ！ひばり砲攻撃を受けた。損逃がすな。丸太を山ほど転がしてきやがった。ひばり6が捻挫で追撃不能。
Meanwhile, these kids have just like Macaulay Culkin this whole forest.
残りで追撃する。
Meanwhile, there's like literally a dude trapped under a log, and he's like, we'll just leave him there. He sprained his ankle, he'll be fine.
ひばり11トラップによる攻撃を受けた。ひばり12、13が多分脳震盪だ。あんなの当たりどころが悪かったら死んでるぞ。ひばり60トラップにやられた。光線が足に絡まって脱出できない。ナイフじゃ切断できない。番線カッターを持ってきてくれ。
Chaotic radio transmissions came in one after another. Obviously, Okinawa kept knowing about the mountain dogs being in an advantageous position.
偽装した落とし穴だ。隊員2名が閉じ込められて救出不能。応援を送れ。やべ。どうしたウグイステン。応答しろウグイステン。ウグイステンだ。やられた。俺を後ろから突き飛ばしやがった。ウグイス9から11は井戸内。現在誰の脱出不能。くそ。本部よりウグイス。 バックアップが奇襲を受けた。行動が読まれているぞ。注意しろ。
ウグイス1だ。聞いていいか。どうして動きが読まれるんだ。上空に無人機の影はないぞ。
ビバリ1より本部成績に失敗。見失った。無理だ。この山はトラップだらけだぞ。この距離を追うだけで何人負傷しちゃってんだ。
白鷺1より本部 R を含む数名を発見した。追跡している。至急応援を送れ。
連中め、か乱してトラップで絡め取ろってんだな。白鷺は用心しろ。向こうはお前らをトラップ地帯におびき寄せるつもりだ。敵は各個に分散し、陽動と奇襲のゲリラ戦術で抵抗してくる気だ。高度だぞ。すでに他班でトラップとアンブッシュで負傷者が多発している。用心しろ。 気合い入れてかかれ、白鷺1。白鷺1。
白鷺2より本部。白鷺1がトラップに。誰か班長を吊るしてるロープを切れ。残りは追撃しろ。R を逃がすな。
ウグイス1より本部。ウグイス7たちが沈黙した。襲撃にあった可能性が否定できない。応援を送る許可を。
白鷺5。 隊員3名が上空から降ってきたドラム缶の直撃を受けて混沌した。
Falling drums. When did Satoko have time to lug just like a bunch of drum sets up into the mountains? And then presumably like up into the trees.
なんなんだここは。こんなのがまだまだあるってのか。
ひばり13だ。やられて倒れてたようだ。今一人発見した。追跡する。やろう。よくもやってくれやがったな。
よせ。やめろ、ひばり13。
Oh, Skylark 13. I've been down. Oh wait, there's one of them. I'm gonna chase after them.
お前が一人で叶う相手じゃない。
Oh gosh, they actually have art. Okay, this was redone for the console version. They didn't originally have art. And they didn't remake it for the Steam remake version. Skylark 13 chased Satoko, with an enraged snarl on his face. Satoko ran through the woods effortlessly. Unfortunately, my time is very busy right now into the fall. After starting like probably mid-November, I'll have a bit more time until like the Christmas breaks, maybe at that point. Small branches scratched his body all over. He continued to chase Satoko. Satoko ran like the wind. To her, she was simply running in her own backyard. Who would get injured in a place like... Kids get injured in their own backyard all the time. All your alt account calendars. You know what, Samus is? I actually wouldn't be surprised if it ran on Linux, with how popular it is. Skylark 13 ran after her, past many mountain dogs who couldn't even move because of Satoko's traps. The more of his trapped fellows he saw, the more he wasn't sure if the girl he was after was really a girl. It was just something that looked like one. He reached an area where logs were stacked up in piles. It seemed like the trees in the area were being chopped down. Removed Linux support from some of their games. I don't know where he went. His treats are up in that white bin if you want to summon him. My guess is, if that's the case, Samus, my guess is they just don't want to support Linux, and that's why they're removing support. Good boy. It's a rather strange scene. On his way there, Skylark 13 saw a member from a different unit hanging upside down from a tree. He also saw feet sticking out of a pitfall. There was a member whose foot was tied to the root of a tree with a device that looked like a pair of handcuffs. The less work they can do, that's what they're gonna do. He reached this area after seeing all of them. He suddenly started sweating all over his body. Skylark 13 realized he had been lured into a trap and caught in a snare. She had tricked him. The girl was standing in the middle of the open area, calmly balancing on a stump. She was simply looking at him. Shit, he thought. She's trying to lure me in. Careful, buddy.
そいつは少女じゃない。少女の姿をした悪魔だ。そいつの後を追えば地獄まで誘い込まれるぞ。
You're just trying to get down, bud.
本部よりひばり13。 それで十分だ。応援を待て。今そこに最寄りの隊員を向かわせている。
どうなさいましたの？私を捕まえたければあともう10メートルくらいは歩く必要がございますわよ。
It's only 10 meters. Just walk about 10 meters, he'd catch that bratty little girl. How many steps do you have to take to walk 10 meters? It took 10 steps to walk 10 meters, that meant there'd be 10 more chances of stepping on a trap. But it's only 10 steps. You can catch her after taking just 10 steps.
そう思いならまずは最初の一歩を踏み出してみればいいではございませんか。ほらほら。
How's he gonna take his first step? That area with weeds looks suspicious. The bare ground looks suspicious too. What if he jumped onto a tree stump? No, that was what she wanted him to do. Cold sweat was dripping off of Skylark 13's body. He only needed to take 10 steps. So how was he nervous about taking the first one?
どうせひばり13。さっき根っこで足を縛られてたウグイス8だ。切り株はきっと罠だ。辺りは切り株だらけというのがうさんくさい。聞こえるかひばり13。物資は危険だ。草むらは踏むな。むき出しの土もやばい。くそったね。
じゃあどこを踏めばいいんだよ。空を飛んでけってのかよ。
まだいらっしゃいませんの？私退屈ですからそろそろ失礼しますわよ。
こちらすまきにされて転がっているウグイス9だ。今標的の一人にその頭を蹴られている。そこはトラップフィールドだと言ってるぞ。え？その待ち構えてる小娘の最高傑作が設置されているらしい。
Oh, don't worry, Sam, says I'm exactly the same. Gotta be kidding me. Did he say magnum opus? What does he mean by magnum opus? What about all the other traps? Weren't they her magnum opus? Moon dogs are professionals. We're paid to engage in battle. This little girl is playing us like fools. Can we not beat her? Can we beat that brat? This must be a bluff. How is it possible for a trap to exist that's worse than what we've seen so far? Has to be a bluff. I'm definitely gonna go get her. Should I start with my right foot or my left? The girl suddenly lifted her hand and thrust at me. Trying to tell me to stop?
何事もなく5歩を無事に歩けたらあなたの勝利ということでいいですわよ。
ほほ、それは大した自信じゃねえか。もし俺が5歩何もなく歩けたらどう？
そうですわね。私の敗北を認めて降参して差し上げてもよろしくってよ。私今日は最高にトラップ能が絶好調ですの。あなたを午後で絡め取ってご覧に入れますわ。
クソガキ！
落ち着けひばり13。挑発に乗るな。そいつは悪魔だ。外見に騙されるな。そいつは人の心を読むぞ。俺たちの叶う相手じゃねえ。
本部よりひばり13、深追いするな。十分だ。近くまでウグイスが応援に来ている。その場で耐えろ。それじゃ俺の負けってことじゃねえかよ。こうだと 合法だと。くそ、乗ってやるぜ。合法だな。たったの合法だな。
男が何度もくどいですわね。愛のささやき以外は男は一言で十分ですよ。
このガキャ
ひばり13読まれるぞ。劇場は思考を読まれるぞ。
落ち着け。そうさ、俺はひばりの13番。ミントみたいにクールなのが遠いさ。だから熱くならずによく考えろ。そうさ、俺の思考はすでに絡め取られていた。奴に向かって5歩進まなければならないって時点で思考を絡め取られてた。
ほほう、それはどういう意味でございますの？
This is what it means.
じゃねえ。後ろに5歩歩くんだよ。
I did it. I was certain it was a trick. Take 5 steps, I win. She didn't say I had to move forward. I can go backwards too.
だからあなたは5歩でおしまいなんですのよ。
ひばり13、沈黙。あのバカ、すっかり乗せられやがって。
Satoko's remarkable performance wasn't just her own effort. Shion had mastered the geography and the enemy's formations while instructing Satoko. Satoko marked all of her traps on the map. With that map and Mion's ability to command combined, the club was simply unbeatable. Rika and Hanyu knew the mountains almost as well as Satoko, relayed orders from Mion to Keiichi Arena, and they prepared for the ambush. Traps didn't always activate when they were stepped on. Sometimes Keiichi and the others were setting them off at the right moment. Yes, Samuses. Keiichi and Arena continued to fight everywhere according to Mion's orders. Sometimes they'd hide, sometimes they'd attack. One by one, they eliminated their enemies. Which Twitch issues? Jeez, that's a... that's a mouthful to say. Shouldn't be a mouthful considering how many issues Twitch has. Oh yeah. Yeah? What did you do? I've heard so many people complaining about buffering stuttering desync recently. I just thought it was a Twitch issue at this, like, it was on Twitch's side at this point. Or like a specific, like, internet service provider. To Keiichi's surprise, attacks with his bat had worked out successfully too. Not even well-trained mountain dogs could respond to attacks or being stunned by these traps. He seen only a little time to react. According to the research... When did he have time to do research for the US Armed Forces? The average reaction time is 15 seconds. In other words, any soldier is powerless during the 15 seconds following a surprise attack. Okay. So changing the performance setting from Firefox fixed the issue? Or so far, at least. Shortening those 15 seconds is one goal of their training. No matter how much they train, it will never become zero. The radio communications actually made things much worse for them. The more they heard about damage to the other units, the more worried they got. That slowed them down, making them think less strategically. At that point, as far as Mion was concerned, the mountain dogs were no longer a force to be reckoned with. Nice.
まっとうな指揮官なら本部に撤退を申し入れるね。
こちらひばり湾、隊員に負傷者多数。負傷者への対応で追撃に手がこれ以上の追撃は断念せざるを得ない。
ひばり湾、損害は大きいが我が方は確実に敵の行動権を狭めているぞ。撤退は認めない。現状兵力で戦線を維持せよ。
くそ、ひばり湾より全員本部から死ねと命令だ。装備を再点検しろ。進軍を再開するぞ。
でも高野さんたちは頭に血が上ってるからそれを許可しない。指揮官は撤退を却下され、士気が低下したまま追撃を再開。こいつは叩く絶好のチャンスだね。リカちゃん、レナと合流して Z 地区に誘い込んで。あそこのトラップはだいぶごっついよ。羽生はケイちゃんに X 地区に転戦しろと連絡を。こんな面白いゲームはないね。
ミオンが絶好調なのです。今のミーが生まれる時代を間違えていたら歴史に名を残しかねないのです。
私に言わしゃ、ネルソンも東郷もまあまあってとこだね。もう裏山全体が手に取るようだよ。
Mion was the type to display exponential ability. If she's down, she's at rock bottom. If she's in perfect form, it's just terrifying. That was the blood of the head of one of the three families of Hinamizawa. Mion had been around for a historical battle. She would have changed history. If she were to join Napoleon, Serbia would be French territory. If she were to join... Why do they like bringing Hitler into things? We don't want Europe to belong to Hitler. Even with all that, the battle in the mountains was simply a diversion. Just as Mion had expected, everything had collapsed into chaos. The mountain dogs could think calmly. They could have realized they hadn't seen any adults. They didn't notice, confused as they were by all the attacks they were suffering. Of course, that too is part of Mion's plan. The scale of the diversion would hide the fact that there was a rescue unit going to get Tomitake. Therefore, the more chaotic the battles grew on the mountain, the better it was for the rescue unit. That was why she chose such an ostentatious method of fighting. At the same time, it was exactly the kind of fight Mion preferred. She didn't intend to let it just be a diversion. She was planning to destroy the dog's main force on these mountains. Yet most frightening of all was our home advantage. It wasn't exaggerating to say the theory that defenders have thrice the advantage over assailants is heavily due to their advantage of location. In that case, how's the rescue unit doing? They were at a disadvantage because they were on the offense. 4 rescue unit members, led by Irie, were hiding in a bush next to the clinic.
行きましょう。こちら側をフォローするカメラは故障中ですから大丈夫です。
こんなとこから堂々と？うわ、怖いね。
敵は監視をセキュリティに依存しきってるようです。問題ないでしょう。
行きましょう。まずは壁沿いに伝い、所長室の裏へ。
はい。私が出るとき、窓は閉めませんでしたから、そこから入るとすぐ脇が裏口で、そこには監視カメラと1階保安室があり、死角角前は厳重に監視カメラで見張られていますので、必ずバレるでしょう。
地下に行く前にその1階の2人を制圧しないとね。退路確保は基本でしょ。
まずは所長室から入って1階保安室。
Move forward, walking against the walls, they'd remain in the blind spot of the security cameras. Soon reached the window of the director's office. Many village kids saw them, they'd assumed they were playing around, pretending to be spies. Harry was glad the clinic was closed on Sundays. Harry peeked into the room, exactly the same as how he left it. The window was open, too. 4 of them snuck into the room through that window. Akasaka put his ear against the door to the hallway. He signaled the others, let them know that there was no one on the other side. Since the clinic was closed, the mountain dogs were the only people around. Being Sunday really was fortunate. Very quiet in the clinic. The chorus of the cicadas was the only thing that could be heard. There was a clock on the director's desk. It was almost 11:30 a.m. Shion was surprised to find herself getting hungry given all that was going on. Kasai and Akisaka checked over their weapons. Yurie brought out a book of blueprints from the locked bookcase. The title said Construction Plan for the Yurie Clinic.
ここが所長室です。ここが1階保安室。出てすぐそこです。監視カメラはこの赤鉛筆がそうです。
1階保安室の制圧自体は難しくなさそうだ。問題は地下ですね。
これが地下の研究区画です。ここが入り口。図面では表向きは職員用の2階への階段になっていますが、実際は地下区画への入り口が隠されています。そして階段で地下へ。
よくもこんな大きな地下を作ったものです。地上部分よりもよっぽど広いですね。
それは地下こそがこの診療所の真の姿である証拠です。
で、これが監督の認証カードでないと入れない扉と。認証カードが封印されて使えなくなってるなんてことは、万一認証カードが使えない場合にゲートの物理的突破は可能？
非常に厳重な扉で、証拠隠滅時にはそれを閉じてから内部に注水して封鎖する決まりになっています。
ということは秘密扉か。この容積を満たす水圧に耐えるということは相当に頑丈だ。
ってことは認証カード以外の方法では不可能ってことだね。
一般用の認証カードは個別の登録抹消が可能なはずですが、登録抹消には各個に設定した8桁のパスワードが必要ですから、事実上彼らに
将校自らが不法使用することは想定していないということですね。
それでもダメな時は1階保安室の人間に開けさせましょう。保安要員のカードなら将校の次に強力なはずです。
素直に協力してくれるとは思えませんが
協力しないんならカードと指紋認証用に指を1本ちょんと拝借するまでです。
You can't mess it up on his birthday.
私のカードで開くことを祈るばかりです。
地下のセキュリティルームはどれです？
認証カードで入ってすぐ脇のこの部屋です。この部屋には空調もテレビもありますから、基本的に保安の方はそこに全て詰めています。上で2人をやっつければ残りの6人がいるはずです。
6人か。一気に制圧しないと難しいね。一瞬で制圧しないとほぼ確実に警報を鳴らされる。先に警報を切断する方法は？
ちょっとわかりませんが、予備電源や予備回線があるはずです。
現実的じゃないか。セキュリティルームを制圧する方が現実的ですね。保安の連中の武装は
？1階の保安は非武装ですが、1階保安室には一応銃が置かれているという話です。地下の保安は全員が拳銃を携帯しています。あとセキュリティルームにはもっと強力な連発式の銃が何丁か置かれていたはずです。
屋内での用途から考えて多分口径の短い機関拳銃のようなものでしょう。長距離での命中率はひどく落ちますが、小回りが利き近距離では十分な火力を持つ危険なものです。
地下で撃ってきた連中 MP5 でしたし、そいつが何丁持ってのはちょいと厄介ですね。でもここを制圧できれば地下は私たちの手に落ちる。監督、サトシ君は？
本当は動かしたくないところですが、敵の巣の中に放置はできません。サトシ君も安全なところに移しましょう。私の付き添いも必要です。
サトシ君はどの部屋にいるんです？
この奥の病室に監禁されています。そこは去年から 彼専用の部屋になっています。
サトシ君。
Look in Shion's eyes made it clear her determination. The security guard he chased after Irie in the security room on the first floor. They resumed their game of poker. They knew that the mountain dogs were combing the mountains, and they were well aware that the Institute continued to be in danger. Their job was to stay in that room. Besides, they were working hard on their poker game. Of course, they weren't really concentrating on the game itself. They were still both chatting about the recent car chase. Both seemed proud about what they'd done. They ordered to shoot at the tires, but they wished they'd been ordered to shoot at Irie himself. They definitely would have caught him then. They talked and laughed like that. People stopped being on edge. That left them all the more vulnerable. This was a perfect example. That's why it only took 2 seconds to suppress them. Security guards were professionals. They immediately realized the guns Kasai, Akisaka, and Shion were holding weren't toys. They'd already heard there was a gunfight in the basement of the Sonozaki residence. Security guards knew they weren't dealing with amateurs. They also knew they wouldn't hesitate to fire. That was why they surrendered so quickly. They had handcuffs on them already, so it was easy for Kasai and the others to restrain them. Security guards had never thought they'd be wearing the cuffs themselves. They'd especially never dreamed of being locked up in a toilet. Their hands were cuffed to pipes behind them as they sat on the toilet seats. Their mouths were stuffed with hand towels and covered with duct tape. Shion, clearly amused, remarked how she always wanted to do this to someone, and Kasai couldn't help but laugh.
ここまでは順調ですね。問題は地下です。監視カメラで必ず気づかれます。
そのカメラはモノクロ？画面は4分割？
確かそうだったと思います。よくある防犯カメラの画面です。
ってことは解像度は良くないですね。なら私いい手を思いつきました。
シオンさん、捕虜の虐待はあまり良くないのでは？
Mountain dogs weren't only locked in the bathroom, they had to go through extra humiliation. Radio calls continued to come in from the mountain dogs who were fighting up in the mountains. Security guards listened to them intently over the speakers. What they could hear was obvious: the mountain dogs weren't doing well at all. They kept falling into traps, suffering heavy losses, all of which they had never expected. It's clear that the mountain dogs were trapped. They even started to think they were being lured into something bigger than a simple military maneuver. Mountain dogs had made a mistake. They assumed the club members went to the mountains to escape from Hinamizawa. They were wrong. They were simply being lured into their enemy's carefully prepared territory. Panicked voices of the mountain dogs, Takano's yelling, and Okanagi's reprimands could be heard through the speaker. It certainly sounded like a war zone.
休憩時間は終わりだぞ。俺たちも出撃する。味方の損害率はすでに致命的状況だが、敵は確実に後退を重ねてすでに包囲されつつある。もう一息だ。温存した大鳥で一気に圧殺する。陣頭指揮はサンサが直接取られるそうだ。俺も出るぞ。これで決着させる。
おい、隊長が出るぞ。大鳥も上がる。総力戦だ。
なんて奴らだ。ってことはすでに被害は小隊規模にもなるってのか。
俺たちは何者を相手にしてるんだよ。相手はどこの特殊部隊だってんだ。
Security guards listening to the battle reports over the radio fluctuated between dismay and rejoicing. A cute chime rang suddenly. It was a warning chime that rang automatically when someone went through the entrance to the basement. The chime rang. The guards were supposed to check the screen to see who was coming through. When we looked at the screen, he needed a moment to comprehend what he was seeing.
おい、入江首相だぞ。
何?
You could see the 2 security guards on the first floor restraining Irie and some girl.
これ、所長だよな。どういうことだ？
そういうことか。向こうは陽動で、こいつらが富武救出に忍び込もうとしたってことだ。
三佐に所長を連行したと連絡しろ。
Yeah, if you woke up with breathing issues, please get some medicine. Maybe see a doctor. The buzzer sounded, and the computer panel displayed information about the card being used to enter. Commissioned Officer Pass. ID 0001, Special Grade 1. Lieutenant Colonel Yosuke Irie, Director. Password redacted. Match. Fingerprint confirmation. Match.
Huh?
How strange. Security guards brought Irie down. That made sense. How are they using the director's security access card? They're even using his fingerprint. How are they having him do that? Would it be quicker just for the guards to do that themselves? One of the guards figured it out, but it was too late. The door of the basement was open, and 4 newcomers forced their way inside. They ran through the security camera screen and were headed straight for the security room. They had seen them. As soon as the door opened, the security guards started firing. Akasaka realized that if it had taken him a second longer to pull back, he would have been riddled with hundreds of bullets. One of the guards pushed the desk onto its side. Paper cups on the desk fell to the floor, spilling coffee everywhere. They used the desk as a barricade. The other 2 guards started to shoot at random. As long as the guards were shooting at the rescue unit, they couldn't counterattack. One of the guards activated the emergency alarm, another picked up a submachine gun off the wall. The other one picked up a gas mask. It was impressive that they got their act together so quickly. A situation like this would result in a fierce gun battle, meaning it would take quite a while for the rescue team to suppress the guards. The emergency alarm sounding in the basement reminded them that the surprise attack had failed.
一気に制圧し損ねた。
でも敵は全員この中、袋のこの部屋に釘付けにしているうちに、サトシ君と富武さんを救出しちゃいましょう。
Mountain dogs outside would definitely hear that alarm. If it took too long, the enemy would come and block their escape route. Then they'd be trapped inside.
そうだ。確かセキュリティに侵入者対策で確か
Yuri started to speak while he tried to recollect it. Shion told him that he should have remembered something like this before they came in. Before Irie remembered, a voice came on over the speakers.
エントランス区画にて緊急事態が発生しました。エントランス区画にて緊急事態が発生しました。問題が解決するまで研究施設内の全区画は緊急閉鎖されます。エントランス区画のスタッフはセキュリティルームに集合し、防毒マスクを着用してください。保安隊員の指示に従ってください。120秒後に研究区画及びエントランス区画には鎮圧用ガスの自動散布が繰り返します。
どうやら2分以内に制圧して警報を解除しないとヤバいことになりそうだな。
鎮圧用ガスって何ですか？毒ガス？
We've got kind of gas. Corporate agent used in military operations. It just seems like it's essentially trying to disable you, not knock you unconscious, not kill you, just make sure that you can't do anything because you're busy sneezing, your eyes are watering, stuff like that. They either had to run out of there immediately or take over the security room. Since the area had already been sealed off, they couldn't escape. There were armed guards in the security room. If the rescue unit members even peeked around the corner, they'd be shot mercilessly.
ダメだ。これでは狙って撃つなんて到底できない。
インドアの基本はグレネードか。くそ、そんなのないって。
焦って飛び込めば蜂の巣です。どうすればいいんだ。
サトシ君は目前だというのに悔しい。
She had pressed her forehead against her gun, gritting her teeth in frustration. Kasai analyzed the situation. He stood up and spoke.
皆さん、私に任せてもらいましょう。
Guards in the security room were on edge, too. Once the gas was flowing, everything would come to an end. The guards knew their enemy wouldn't just sit and wait for that to happen. They'd come rushing in regardless of the counterattack they'd face. Though the guards still had the upper hand, it'd be a point-blank gunfight. They wouldn't come out of it unscathed. Therefore, as the deadline approached, their tension increased. Guards never considered that the door they opened would be shut again. They fired at the door, leaving many small holes in it. After that, it all went quiet. What were they thinking? There's nowhere to hide. The gas was about to be released. Why would they close the door? For what reason did they do that? That was when a loud explosion punched a hole the size of the door, in the door the size of a fist. Not only the door, but the wall of the security room had a similar hole. A calm voice echoed from the other side of the door. The power of a slug bolt is limited to extremely close-range battles, but it's also incredibly powerful. Well, it's fired from a shotgun, but it doesn't scatter. Shotgun is meant to fire scatter shots, but it can be used to fire only one huge, incredibly powerful bullet. That's the slug. It's usually used for hunting. It's used to shoot at animals, not humans. If it was used on human, their arms and legs would be shattered, and nothing would be left of the head. It shouldn't even be called a bullet, it should be called a cannon. It would easily pierce through the door. The desk they were using as a barricade. Many guards hiding behind the desk before slamming into the wall. Guards understood very well how powerful it was. The kind of guns they shot out had many small bullets, therefore they didn't work as well through a door. Their enemy just didn't care about the door at all. The weapon could easily pierce through anything. Hiding behind the desk didn't mean a thing. Kesai's voice was extremely intimidating. Only one who truly understands the power of a shotgun can talk that way. That's when a deep voice rang out, reverberating through the pit of their stomachs. It must have been coming from the same person. It changed so much so quickly. A roar and explosion sounded at the same time. The upper half of the door disappeared. Numerous lead balls bounced around the room, breaking the lights, ricocheting off the walls, shattering glass, falling onto the floor. The shotgun had turned the security room into hell. A hurricane of the lead balls blew violently through the room as it shattered, scattered, and destroyed everything. The guards could only cover their heads and pray. They prayed the lead balls wouldn't hit them and endured the falling glass. Before they had a chance to recover, Kasai jumped through what was left of the door, kicked aside the desk, and stepped onto one of the guards' heads and yelled at the other. They dropped their guns voluntarily, got on the floor with their hands on their heads. Even Shion couldn't believe what just happened. There were several of them, and they'd all been amply armed. Cass had a weapon too, but it was his presence that had defeated them. Even the mountain dogs couldn't equal what Kasai once had to go through. One of the guards got up in a hurry and switched the alarm off. Kasai stood there calmly, but they were only seconds away from the gas releasing. Shion and Akasaka quickly came to their senses and moved through the room to help Kasai subdue the guards.
こんな真似は二度としないつもりでしたが、緊急措置でした。忘れてください。
That was the Kasai Shion knew, and Kasai hadn't killed anyone. Shion remembered Kasai telling her terrifying shotguns were in the basement of the Sonozaki residence. That was Shotgun Tatsu. All of the people in Shishiboni were so afraid of.
どの道すでに警報は鳴らされています。長居はできません。
そうですね。急ぎましょう。
Akasaka and Kasai pulled out the guards' handcuffs and restrained them. Now that the security room was under their control, Shin realized that there was nothing keeping her from seeing Satoshi. She was getting anxious. Irie had shown her the map. It must be down here, she thought. Shion had already started to run.
私も行ってきます。サトシ君と富武さんを助けないと。
すみません。頼みます。
1、2、3、4、5。
Akasaka felt a chill run down his spine. Here he said there were 6 security guards. Shion wasn't paying attention to anything else. She was only thinking about her reunion with Satoshi. And she still can't hear in her left ear. To make things worse, the security guard is waiting on the left side of Shion. Shion had to regret letting her guard down just a bit too early. The mountain dog jumped out and grabbed Shion. He choked her neck with his thick arm. There's no way Shion could get out of this situation alone. Irie saw what had happened. Fortunately, their backs were turned towards him. It was Irie's chance to attack the enemy. But today, Irie had lost a lot of confidence in himself. He felt he hadn't done anything right all day. Fighting wasn't his expertise. There wasn't really anything he could have done. But he was disappointed in himself not being able to help just the same. But in that moment, he was the only one who could do anything. Possibly wanted to get Kasai or Akasaka. They're both very reliable. Take out this man in an instant. There was no time for that. Only in this moment was his back facing Irie. If Irie didn't do anything, the dog was sure to take Shion hostage, creating a deadlock. Enemy backup could arrive at any moment, so being in a deadlock would mean death. Therefore, Irie couldn't depend on anyone else. He had to resolve the situation himself. He only had one chance. Once the unit member turned around, the deadlock would begin. Is there even a way for Irie to knock him down in one shot? No, he had to. He must. It was something that only Irie could do. Irie took a mechanical pencil out of his pocket. Probably the strongest weapon he had.
くそ、やってくれますね、所長。
Irie stabbed the man in the neck with his mechanical pencil, but only scratched him a little. What was he thinking? The man drew his gun and pressed into Shion's head, created the stalemate just as Irie predicted.
ごめんなさい。私、サトシ君のことで頭がいっぱいだった。
Shion's eyes were filled with tears.
月並みで恐縮ですが、他の侵入者ともども武装解除してもらいましょう。さっきのとんでもない音は相当でかい銃を持ち込んでますね。撃たれたらたまりませんので。
Come on, Irie, remember Kasai-san from earlier. You can do it.
笑わせます。この入江機関。そしてこの入江京介に取引などできるつもりですか？
何？
これは高野さんが開発したシャーペン型の偽装注射器です。薬物については
説明が必要ですか。
なんだと。
A regular person said that, it wouldn't have worked. Irie was wearing his white coat, and the basement was his territory. What he just said sounded very believable. He wanted to believe that Irie was lying. He started to feel an itch on the back of his neck.
高野さんが生み出した170番台の最高傑作です。いかなる治療手段もなく、わずか数分で錯乱、妄想、頭痛、鼻水、鼻詰まり、お通じの普通、数々の激症を引き起こし、最後には自らの爪でお尻をかき破って死んでしまう。治療法はただ一つ。1分以内、この解毒剤の注射を受けることのみです。
嘘だ、そんなのあるはずね。
すでに30秒経過です。そろそろ心臓を経由して全身に回り始めてくることです。
As long as you don't take away mine, sure.
全身のリンパ腺にかゆみは出ませんか。寝るときにいびきやおならが出ませんか。
Shion could only watch this pathetic act in silence. But the mountain dog worked at such a shady research center. What Irie had said sounded totally believable.
わかった。降参する。早くその治療薬を打ってくれ。
はて、言葉遣いがなっていませんね。
わかりました。降参します。早く注射をしてください。
ダメです。ご主人様への言葉遣いがなっていません。一度だけ指導しましょう。いいですか。このお注射はお尻に注射しなくてはなりません。まず四つん這いになってズボンをずらしお尻を出します。その際お尻は突き出すようにし、両肩はぺったり床につけるようにします。右手の親指の爪を噛みながら振り返り、そうそう。そしてあなたはご主人様、この私めにお注射をくださいませと哀願するのです。見えませんか。嘆かわしい。そもそも古来メイドはご主人様への絶対忠誠を誓い、滅私暴行によって美徳と文化を築き上げてきたのです。
There are a lot of people who focus on just ability to write code and not knowing what the language is capable of and like why you should or shouldn't use it in the first place.
そんな素晴らしい社会を作った近年の日本はどうですか。
Especially if you're like a non-technical person to begin with.
メイドの心を忘れた若者はガン色、ルーズソックス、派手派手なハワイ装束。大和なでしこが情けない。お肌もスレスレに。
Pretty sure this has been longer than a minute, my dude.
もちろんニーズです。黒のストッキングも素晴らしい。いや、でもたまにはハイソックスも素敵です。
Even if you didn't know that, that should be like a quick Google.
思えば日本はわびさびとメイドを忘れました。その結果がこの低出産率、超高齢化社会。今や熟年人口は増え続け、萌えメディアもその層をターゲットにするのは時間の問題。やがてはストライクゾーン春が真上とされてきたおばさんにもスポットライトが
This has definitely been more than a minute.
おばさんとメイドの組み合わせはまさにトイレ用洗剤。混ぜるな危険。それを混ぜるとなぜかメイドでなく家政婦さんになり、急にトレンディードラマからヒルトラっぽくなっちゃうのです。それはつまりメイドの絶滅。その時月は砕け、悲しみの雨を地上に降らし、地球をアステロイドベルトが覆う。それこそが予言書に記された最後の審判の日。全世界を偉大なるメイドカチューシャが覆いしとき、真のメイド世界が開かれる。そうだそうそう、図が高い、ひざまずけ。メイドの魂よ、ここに集うのだ。カモンマイ
Why did he go all mad scientist on us?
先生、そいつは後ほどに。
サトシ君。
There really was nobody left to stop her. She ran down the hallway at full speed. It's right there. There's a huge window in front of Shion that allowed her to look inside. Shion threw herself at that window. Satoshi was there, lying on the bed, sleeping with an IV connected to his arm. There's some wires attached to his forehead and chest to observe his brain waves. Waves of light displayed on the machine they connected to prove that he was at least still alive. But he might be sleeping very deeply. His face was pale and he looked like there was barely any life left in him.
生きてるんだよね。サトシ君、生きてるんだよね。
落ち着いてください。入江先生、早く彼を。
Rie brought in the stretcher to load Satoshi onto. Kasai opened it up.
早くサトシ君を、サトシ君を。
シオンさん、彼を出す前に一つだけどうしても約束してほしいことがあります。
Rie gave Shion a condition. What is he saying now? Shion angrily
今
thought.
から彼を担架に移しますが、決して起こそうとしてはいけません。いいですね。絶対約束してください。
どうして起こしちゃいけないんですか？
That was the first thing Shion wanted to do. Wanted to tell him personally that he was free. Rie was telling her that she couldn't do that.
辛いことですが、真実だけを手短に話します。サトシ君はあの日、末期発症により脳と心に深刻な幸いなことに命に異常はありませんが、サトシ君には目に入るものの敵味方、真実と虚構の区別がつかないのです。過度の被害妄想と恐怖に取りつかれ、それから逃れるために急祖が猫を噛むように目の前にいるのが誰であろうと襲いかかります。昨年不用心なスタッフが整形手術を必要とするほどの大怪我をしました。彼はたとえあなたであっても例外としません。
Shion finally noticed it. Sashi was covered in a blanket on the bed. There were two belts over that blanket, holding him down on the bed. And that he also had leather straps around his arms. He was restrained to the bed. Belts had some marks on them.
それって治るんですか？
Silence that followed was cruel. Rie wanted to tell her that he'd be cured. He was a doctor. He knew you shouldn't say anything irresponsible. That was why he couldn't say anything.
何それ？何それ？じゃあ何？サトシ君はもうって言ってくれないの？私の頭を撫でてくれないの？なんで？
Shion cried as she pounded on the glass.
彼のことをどうか彼を起こさないでください。それはきっと彼が望むことを起こせば、そのサトシ君の姿はあなたを必ず傷つけます。そしてサトシ君もその姿をあなたに見せたいとは思わないはずです。ですから分かってください。
そんな。
Shion slid down the window and hit the floor, crying uncontrollably. He scratched the floor, The sad reunion and her anger made her claw at the tiles. Satoshi's smile was there under the floor. Satoshi would scratch all until all of her nails were gone. Satoshi wasn't under the floor, he was right there, sleeping on that bed. He wasn't supposed to be woken up.
ですが、決して悪い話だけでは微弱ですが、この1年、脳波の傾向に回復の兆しが見られるんです。人間の体は弱くありません。それは脳も同じです。脳に致命的損傷を負った人が奇跡的に回復を遂げたという報告は世界中にあります。サトシ君は帰ってこようとしています。必死に戦っています。そして私も負けない。帰ろうと戦うサトシ君をこちら側に連れ戻そうと、私はそして必ずサトシ君をひなみ沢に連れて帰ってみせます。
Brain is what moves people. Brain is only part of a body. Something happens to the brain, the person will end up changing. The change hurts the person himself, as well as the people around him. And hurting others hurts that person even more. Irie recalled his parents, the abnormal change in his father. His mother was not able to understand that it was caused by a brain disorder. That was enough. That was sad enough. That was the reason why Irie became a neurologist. That makes sense. My guess is they tried to learn because they wanted to do something very specific and just figured out how to do enough to do what they wanted. Right now there was a young boy before him and a young girl. Before him was a fragment of the sadness from that day. A fragment of that day's regret. After his father's death, Irie learned that he was misunderstood. That it was due to a brain disorder. All too late by then. He regretted not getting into the study of brains 5 years earlier, but it was too late. He used that exact same website. How bad is it? Now he had studied and experienced so much. He had achieved things, and he had confidence. He still had regrets about that day. Irie holds his fist tightly and spoke without hiding his tears.
命をかけてもいい。私は絶対にサトシ君をひなみ沢へ連れ帰ります。この入江京介が絶対というのです。そしてサトシ君も帰ってこようとしている。互いが手を伸ばし合って届かぬわけがない。だからシオンさん、私を信じてその日まで待ってください。絶対。絶対この入江京介が彼を連れ帰ります。
Irie vowed this from the bottom of his heart. He realized something. Irie realized everything he'd done was in preparation for this day. The two people in front of him weren't his parents, but he was going to rid himself of his regrets and devote himself to that promise.
本当に本当ですね。サトシ君、帰ってくるんですね。本当に。
絶対です。私の人生のすべてを捧げてでも彼をひなみ沢へ連れ帰ります。だからシオンさん、その日を信じて私と待ちましょう。そしてきっと私たちで彼を迎えてあげましょう。その日まで待てますか？この悲しい事実をさとこちゃんに内緒にできますか？
はい。サトシ君、帰ってくるなら何でもします。何でも我慢します。
あれを見てください。
There was something in the corner, that dark room. A giant teddy bear Satoshi bought that day.
彼がさとこちゃんの誕生日のために一生懸命に働いて貯めたお金で買ったものです。あれをサトシ君がさとこちゃんに渡さないでこの世を去るなんて
考えられますか？考えられないでしょう。サトシ君は必ずあのぬいぐるみと一緒にあなたとサトコちゃんのところへ帰ってきます。どうかその日まで我慢をしてください。
お見舞いに来てもいいですか？
もちろんです。
彼の脇に座ったり本を読んであげたりしてもいいですか？それから
いいですよ。きっと彼も喜ぶでしょう。
Shion started to cry again. Akasaka came in with Tomitake, but he couldn't say anything to her.
無事でよかったです。あなたに番犬を呼んでもらえれば全ては解決できます。
実はそうもいかないのです。さっきの保安室の銃撃戦で無線装置が壊れたようなのです。山犬は非常時対応で村全体の通信手段を遮断しているでしょうから、ここの無線装置が損傷した以上。
となれば車で強行突破するしかないでしょう。ミオンさんたちもよく時間を稼いでくれています。しかし籠城ですからやがては追い詰められるでしょう。一刻も早く富武さんを村の外へ脱出させ番犬を呼び寄せる必要があります。
困った問題が一つ。彼らが非常時対応で電話線を遮断しているなら、同じ対応で町へ通じる街道を封鎖することになっているのです。車両突破を防ぐため、彼らには歩兵が携帯する対戦車榴弾砲が一つ与えられているはずです。
RPG7 ですか。戦車を想定していないでしょうから弾頭は榴弾でしょうが、直撃しなくても車がひっくり返るかもしれません。相当厄介な相手です。
しかし街道を車で突破しなかったら無駄な時間がかかりすぎる。迂回などしていたら日が暮れます。みんなもよく戦ってくれていると思うが、暮れるまで持ちこたえられるとは思えません。急がないと危険です。
もたもたしてる暇はないです。何が何でも富武のおじさまを沖宮に大至急。監督はサトシ君と安全な場所へ。とにかく大至急出ましょう。ここに敵が殺到するのも時間の問題です。
Shion's eyes were swollen from crying, but she'd calmed down. Satoshi's safety depended on their victory. They had to win for his sake, too. Although this was a very sad situation, Satoshi was alive. He'd be back someday. Shion understood that, yet more tears poured from her eyes. Is this everyone? Thank you. Succeeded over here. Donna didn't have enough stamina to walk around in the mountains. She was running out of breath, and so she continued to scream at the mountain dogs on the radio. She wasn't using an intercom like the mountain dogs were. Instead, she was using the communication unit on the back of one of the dogs, so he constantly had to listen to her yelling.
どいつもこいつに頼りないったらありゃしない。それでも特殊部隊なの？天下の山犬はどうしたというのよ。
Emma bit her lower lip and squeezed her left arm with her nails. Her arms had nail marks all over them. She was holding her grandfather's research scrapbook in her left hand. Even Takano didn't know why she was holding it. Maybe she grabbed it subconsciously because she wanted her grandfather to comfort her. Again, games. She didn't grab it when she was passed out. It's not unconscious. The mountain dogs had already suffered devastating damage. They had to walk around in an area they were unfamiliar with, waste their energy on the multitude of traps that had been set. Although they were as tough as can be, they were getting exhausted.
うちの酸素にゃ。
ウグイス1よりウグイス13。用心しろ。お前の左翼が沈黙した。今度はお前が狙われるぞ。
ふざけるなよ。なんだってんだよ。俺かよ、畜生。
He panicked. Same thing kept happening. His team members had been going down one at a time, starting from his left flank. He was next. That mean the enemy was coming from his 9 o'clock? No, those demons didn't think normally. This mountain being aware of 360 degrees around yourself wasn't enough. Even being cautious of the ground below your feet and the sky above your head wasn't enough. Where are they all fucking coming from? These bastards, come here. Come the fuck at me. Nightingale 13 held his taser in front of him as he looked around timidly. Taser could have been a powerful weapon, far more effectively used indoors. This mountain, it was almost worthless. Nightingale 13 heard a noise from behind him from a bush. Thought he saw something, so he fired his taser. The electrodes flew out into the bush. Just imagine it. He felt a tug on his taser. The cord from the taser was stuck in the bush, and he couldn't rewind it. It wasn't useless before, it had certainly become that way. Then he heard a noise from behind him again, and this time he saw someone coming at him. But his weapon was useless. The newcomer growled at him. That was all it took. He was so scared he didn't think. Exactly what Satoko expected. Satoko was up in the tree, dropped a metal bucket on his head. It landed perfectly. The bucket had some drawings on it. What were they? They were drawings of strange, unknown creatures. They somehow resembled those strange characters you see on educational TV programs. As Rena jumped out from another bush, she hit the bucket with a stick. Maybe it should be described as a strike instead of a hit. The man flew backwards. Keiichi was ready for him. The stance he was in looked a bit like... That's it. He looked like a batter in a batter's box. He was on one foot. That was the legendary one-foot swing created by the one famous baseball player. Destructive force can't be measured from just one direction. It's a function of both speeds added together. Both Keiichi's strike and the speed of his opponent created a truly amazing destructive force. An exhilarating and magnificent sound, the mountain dog flew into the air in the opposite direction. And he rolled down on the ground and stopped. There Riko awaited him. It's almost as though they calculated that he would end up there. Riko patted the bucket happily. This comforting moment for Nightingale 13 only lasted for a second. He unshot her taser at his butt. Nightingale 13 jerked for a moment, then went limp. Keiichi and Rena jumped on him and tied his hands behind his back with the wire. Ani and Satoko high-fived. Keiichi and Rena tiled Nightingale 13 up. Rika tried to sense something in the air. She's acting like she's a radar detector. Rika reported to Mion. She was a bit like a radar. Mion didn't even care about the guy they just knocked out. She was already trying to figure out their next move while looking at Satoko's map, using the info Rika gave her. Everyone eagerly awaited Mion's next order. Are you losing brain cells from reading messages from all these people in Discords? You don't know what they're talking about? Mion was a great leader. She had both leadership skills and tactical abilities. More than anything else, she was great at encouraging people's spirits. There's no cowardly soldiers under a brave general. But they're certain to let you know. Brave soldiers fight like a million men under Mion's command. Nobody could stop Mion and her club members. Both Mion and Okanagi's original estimates were too low. Now Okanagi was thinking something else. Before they started the siege, he likened one of them to a well-trained platoon. That didn't fit anymore. They were on par with an elite armored division. Foot soldiers couldn't beat an armored division. What Okanagi had was just a company. Where was the air support, or a bombardment from a warship, or an artillery base? Okanagi needed someone to pump the mountain full of holes. He couldn't have that, he needed a submarine to fire a nuclear weapon. He couldn't have that, he wanted to retreat. Okanagi no longer doubted it. The enemy commander was a genius. Under a mighty commander, all its soldiers become heroes. He wanted to see the face of the commander, or at least know their name. And Okanagi remembered that the demons used to live in Hinamizawa. He also realized the commander had to be a demon.
こちらひばりてる。子供の笑い声が聞こえる。包囲された。頼む、助けてくれ。ひばりて、退却しろ、退却しろ。退却ってどっちだよ。大鳥ないんだ。敵の一人を発見、追跡してる。応援を。
大鳥ない。どこにいるんだ。所在地がわからない。周辺の状況を送られたし。
霧が出てる。寒い。ここは河原？
大鳥ない。地図上ありえない。落ち着いて状況を確認しろ。
そんな。死んだ姉ちゃん。
大鳥ない。大鳥ない。応答しろ。大鳥ない。沈黙。
無理だ。奴らはこの山の鬼だ。 俺は知ってる。これは鬼隠しなんだ。俺たちは全員この山で消されちまうんだ。
バカなことを口走るのはやめろ。各班長は採点庫で状況把握と指揮公用に努めろ。敵は悪魔なんかじゃない。ただのクソガキだ。ビビるな。格の違いを見せてやれ。
誰のインカムから聞こえてるんだ。俺じゃない。俺じゃない。ク
マだ。大鳥3だ。ここには野生のクマがいるのか。聞いていない。大鳥1、一度撤退し下記の武装の検討を。
バカ言うんじゃねえ。いくら矢口三家だって野生のクマがいるはずねえだろう。連中のハッタリだ。乗せられるな。
人の身に過ぎたるを知らぬ汚すことを許されぬ聖地を踏み荒らす罪を知るがい。我に感謝せよ。聖地を汚した罪をあがなう機会を与えしことを感謝せよ。
ちくしょう。誰かのインカムを奪ってやがるんだ。 敵の指揮減退戦術に乗るな。
恐れを知ることかなわぬ哀れな人間ども。よかろう。汝らがその身でしか知ることができないというなら、我が
ウグイスワンだ。光栄が来ていない。バカな。どこへ行った。応答しろ。
哀れなウグイスが一羽。 踏み込むことを許されぬ地に迷い込む。そんなにも知りたいか。鬼の世を知りたいか。告げよ。人の世に別れよ。我が忠告に耳を重ぬ具を今より知れ。
誰の姫だ今のは。 ウグイス、結構取れ。
またやられた。誰が沈黙した？それより本部、俺の左肩には誰かいるんだよな。俺は孤立してるんじゃないよな。
まだ聞きたいか。痛みを伴う声が。
なんだよ今の音。何がひしゃげたらあんな音になるんだよ。
俺昔電車の飛び込みを見たことある。あん時と同じだ。全身がひしゃげる音だ。や
だ、そんな死に方ごめんな。死にたくねえ、死にたくねえ。やめてくれ山の神様。俺も好きでやってるわけじゃねえんだ。給料もらってやってるだけなんだ。
ウグイスワンより本部、ダメだ。士気の高揚は困難。隊員の脱落と士気低下は深刻。これ以上の戦線維持は困難。損害が増えるだけだ。
だから落ち着け、ウグイスワン。他の隊員は野戦の素人ばかりじゃねえか。お前はあの地獄の卒業生だろうが、そのお前が混乱してどうするんだ。落ち着け、お前が範を示せ。
本部、ウグイスワンが応答しない。そんな、あの人がやられるなんてダメだ。やっぱり悪魔だ。
ダメだ、敵は心理戦までこなしやがるのか。ガキどものくせにプロの不正規戦部隊に指揮減退戦術まで仕掛けやがるというのか。
Radios are usually helpful communication tools. In this case, they backfired. Club members took an intercom from a mountain dog they knocked out and used it to corner the other members psychologically. It worked even more effectively because they were in enemy territory and were unfamiliar with the terrain. The best solution would be to make everyone stop using the intercom. That would give the enemy more chances to attack them individually. Okanagi was growing fearful of the club members, as he still hadn't grasped their true identities. However, Takano still hadn't recognized how serious the situation was. He kept yelling at the mountain dogs to get their act together. Okanagi could tell she was exactly the type of commander who only commanded to attack and let her men die. Takano's reckless orders were working away. Though the club members were winning, their area of operation was getting smaller. Club members were trying to lure the enemy's new trap area into one trap area after another. In other words, they were defeating the mountain dogs by allowing them to come into their territory. The mountain dogs were about to be annihilated, but the curtains were closing on the club members' theater too. Okanagi realized his enemies were trying to finish this battle in a hurry. The mountain dogs fell back, everything they'd done would be for nothing. He didn't want to, but he had to follow the princess's orders. Okanagi figured he was finally about to get his enemies. Hanyu and Keiichi continued to act over the commandeered radio.
相手が人で耳がついてる限り、誰だろうと俺様のケイチマジックで思いのままに操ってやるぜ。
聞こえる？私は高野よ。三頭陸佐よ。あんたたちの最上位の上司よ。聞きなさい。鬼もいないし神様もいないわ。もしいるなら戦いなさい。神などその座から引きずり下ろしてやるのよ。ヒバリとウグイスは合流して戦力を立て直しなさい。
Fighting God sounds like that's above my pay grade.
大鳥は白鷺の残存と合流。敵は山頂付近の営林署の資材小屋あたりを本拠地にしている模様。高所を取られてるわ。こちらの動きが筒抜けのはず。奇 習はあって当たり前よ。差し違えてでも倒しなさい。
サンサ、武装に戻る許可。奴らを制圧するにはテーサーでは無理です。
許可できるわけな。私たちは今奴らを完全に包囲して追いつ。ここで引けば取り逃がすわよ。私たちはあいつらの首に両手をかけてる。あとは締めるだけなのよ。
At the same time, Okanagi received another radio call. Yeah, take care, Samus says. Have a wonderful night. Using that lineman, his caller didn't want Takano to hear the conversation. Thank you. Okanagi understood the meaning of that, so he walked away from Takano and answered quietly.
指揮者より大鳥は緊急事態です。診療所研究区画が襲撃を受けたようです。エントランス区画への侵入者警報を受信しましたが、すぐに解除されました。ご法事の手続きによらない解除です。状況の確認を求めていますが、無線に応じません。現在研究区画の武装保安隊も含め全員が沈黙しています。
Okanagi understood everything. He had been fooled. He suspected a diversion. He never thought that the heavy armed security unit of the Mountain Dogs could be bested. Enemies were soldiers in camouflage, and he wouldn't have been fooled. He underestimated them because he thought they were kids. And now he really understood. He understood the reason why no adults showed up in this battle on the mountain.
そいつは東京の格好に伝えたか？
まだです。連絡しますか？
連絡しろ。富武は奪還され脱出。村境で封鎖線を張らせてるが、武装保安隊を秒殺した連中だ。RPG 一機では難しいだろう。
封鎖線に応援を送りますか？
バカ。そんな余剰人員があったらお姫様が突撃させてるぜ。今手が空いてるのはむしろお前くらいだ。封鎖線に連絡。車両の強行突破に備えろと伝えろ。
了解。
了解。警戒を厳にする。各自聞け。診療所が襲撃され捕虜を奪われたとの連絡が入った。敵はおそらく車両にて強行突破を試みるものと思われる。
RPG を準備。他は一斉射撃で蜂の巣にしろ。射殺許可は出ているぞ。
One of the Mountain Dogs nodded and opened a narrow case in the trunk of the van. In that case was a powerful anti-tank weapon designated RPG-7. This was a weapon that many said changed the history of modern warfare. After all, this terrifying weapon had a firing range over several hundred meters and was capable of burying most tanks in existence. The dawn of this weapon meant we were at an age now where a lone foot soldier possessed the firepower to destroy a tank. It was capable of reshaping the history of warfare. That was the RPG-7. Each of the other four members had an MP5, the weapon used to destroy the tires on Irie's car. No question that the blockade team was well armed. They waited in the van until the enemy vehicle showed up. Once they saw a suspicious vehicle, they were planning to stop it by moving into the middle of the road. They intended to destroy that vehicle by firing all at once. They had to watch very carefully for suspicious vehicles coming from Hinamizawa. This was the only road that connected Hinamizawa to Okonomiya. It would take more than half a day to get there if they used a different route. The blockade was where the gravel road changed to a paved road. What people called the village border, and it was their last chance to stop anyone from leaving. Hinamizawa was at a higher elevation from that point, so the vehicle would be coming downhill. They were probably expecting barricade as well as heavy resistance from the Mountain Dogs. If they wanted to pass this point, the only way would be by force. They could start a gunfight, but that would take too much time. If they didn't want to waste any, they should avoid unnecessary conflict. Someone's stomach growled, but nobody made fun of it. That was understandable since all the members were getting ready for a battle. Nobody even wanted to laugh. They looked at the clock. It was almost noon. Of course they'd be getting hungry. That time they heard a noise coming from the direction of Hinamizawa. Obviously the car was going very fast. The van moved to the middle of the road and stopped there. Some of the men hid behind the van, some hid in bushes on the side of the road. They pointed their guns at the suspicious vehicle coming towards them. The car must have been going very fast, but this was a straight road. No matter how fast it was going, it couldn't escape. That car happened to belong to Kasai. Shining black paint, and the sound of the engine made it clear it was a very nice car. RPG-7 fires unguided rockets. Therefore, hitting a quickly moving target is extremely difficult. In this case, however, their target was straight ahead. The car tried to swerve. Suddenly, it flipped. If that was the case, it wasn't necessary to shoot directly at it. Besides, according to what Kasai said, its power can easily flip a car without a direct hit. Even if there was only one chance to fire, the Mountain Dogs were definitely in an advantageous position.
Tomitake-san, 不審なワゴンが路上を封鎖してます。伏せてください。注意して、向こうのワゴンの鼻先に当てるようにするんだ。分かってます。一度経験してますので、コツは分かってますよ。
Mountain Dogs aimed at the vehicle, was coming right for them.
距離100未満まで引き寄せろ。分かってる。即挙してろ。
Mountain Dog in the bushes laid in wait, ready to fire. Rock from the tip glinted eerily like it was waiting for its prey.
150. 攻撃用意。
Soldiers put his finger on the trigger of the RPG-7.
赤坂さん、衝撃に備えてください。
距離100。
Happened? Didn't the RPG-7 fire? It was when the one measuring the distance next to the shooter noticed something. The shooter's shoulder had been hit and he was tumbling to the ground.
Sniper! 銃声はなかった。距離400以上だ。そんなのどうでもいい。撃て撃て撃て
Only the regular guns could stop the car now, but the Mountain Dogs fired all at once. Immediately they realized something. The car had been hit by a hail of bullets at close range. Any normal car would have been on fire in short order. There was nothing. This wasn't a normal car.
そりゃそうです。その崎家御用達のゴールデンリムジンですから。葛西 RPG を観測手が拾った。撃たせるな。
この距離で外す。
Shion and Kasai were far beyond that straight road. They were in the enemy's blind spot on the other side of the hill, on top of an abandoned car. Shion was on her knees, checking the Mountain Dog's movements with a pair of military-grade high-power binoculars. Kasai was lying on top of the car with a sniper rifle in his hands. Shion figured this would be where the Mountain Dogs would place their ambush. The only way for them to beat the dogs was to snipe at them. Both Shion and Kasai took sniping lessons in the US during the dam conflict. Kasai was now aiming at the man who picked up the RPG and was trying to take position with it. Again, the RPG wasn't fired and was down on the ground. The two who tried to shoot were both groaning and clutching at their wounds. They were both shot in the shoulder. The wounds wouldn't kill them, but they definitely couldn't fire the rocket. The car had arrived. Mountain Dog screamed and drove out of its way. Akasaka must have been used to driving this kind of situation. He hit the nose of the van just right and broke through the blockade. And was hurled away and spun in a circle. The Mountain Dogs tried to get back in the van. Shion and Kasai shot at them.
狙撃教練を完全に終了してるベテラン狙撃手だぞ。あとそれと同格のベテラン観測士がこっちの動きが丸見えらしいぞ。狙いが正確すぎる。
Scope on a sniper rifle is one specifically made for sniping. Therefore, its field of vision is so narrow that the sniper is unable to see the surroundings well. That's why it's always necessary to pair up with a spotter. The spotter uses powerful binoculars to probe the situation and communicate information to the sniper. Snipers can't do their job alone. The potential is unleashed only when paired up with a spotter equally as skilled. Tried to stand up and climb into the van. The ultra-velocity rifle bullets pinned them down. Bullets ripped through the air, traveling faster than the speed of sound. The noise those bolts created was nothing like the sound from a normal gun. It almost sounded like the Grim Reaper himself swinging down his scythe. Furthermore, they couldn't see the Mountain Dogs, but the dogs couldn't see them. Or they could see the Mountain Dogs, but the dogs couldn't see them. Only those who had actual experience being sniped at could understand this fear.
ダメだ車に近づけない。俺たちはいい。お前たちだけでも追え。
分かった。俺たちだけで追撃する。
There was a driver and one mountain dog in the van. They had to leave, otherwise it would be too late. The driver made a snap judgment and slammed on the gas pedal.
どうですか？来てる。運転がうまいね。あんなワゴン車なのに追い上げてくる。それは参りました。応戦を頼みます。うん、任せて。
Tomitake opened a window near one of the back seats and leaned out. Hot air blew into the car. The car was jolting up and down on the bumpy road. He checked the mechanism of his gun calmly. He did it naturally, as though examining his favorite camera. The gun had been taken from one of the security guards in the basement. One of the dogs in the van held the same gun in his hands. The weapons were evenly matched. The road was no longer straight, curved like a snake. There were some bumps and sharp curves which made things in the car fly all over. A gunfight in this situation would be extremely difficult. Tomitake realized he'd run empty in no time if he wasted bullets, so instead of firing recklessly, he carefully waited for the right distance. In doing so, he tried to convince his enemy that they were still out of range to make them close the gap. On the other hand, the mountain dog couldn't take it any longer. He fired, wasting his bullets on the bumpy road. Some of those bullets hit the body of Kasai's car, making a nasty metallic noise.
Tomitake-san, 身を乗り出していては危険です。
大丈夫。あんな下手くそじゃ当たらないよ。僕の生徒だったらゼロからやり直しだな。このような状況下では動きを読む。挙動を予測し、弾幕で予測射撃をするんだ。当てようと思わない。弾幕に突っ込ませるようにするんだ。こういう風にね。
Tomitake fired for the first time after cautiously waiting for the perfect moment. Those who understood guns would be fascinated with his shooting form. His stance was so firm he didn't lose control even in the violent burst of shots. But there was no unnecessary tension and just enough slack. Despite being in such an anomalous position as leaning out from a car, Tomitake was shooting very precisely. It was nothing like what the mountain dogs did earlier. He shot at the right time so his bullet went right where it was supposed to go. It's hard to believe that they were using the same gun. Nasty metallic sounds etched themselves into the body of the van, which made the mountain dog realize just how good Tomitake was.
あいつめちゃくちゃ射撃がうまいぞ。ただの東京のジム屋じゃねえのかよ。
俺噂に聞いたことあるんだ。富武に事故でジム屋に移ったらしいが、教官時代は不正規戦部隊の射撃教官だったと聞いたぞ。
なんだよそれってことは、あいつ。
Tomitake started to aim for the driver's seat to pressure them to give up. The mountain dogs could tell they were in a predicament. Tomitake was capable of hitting his targets easily even on such a bad road. Furthermore, they were in a bulletproof limousine, while the mountain dogs were in a regular van. The van which incidentally was facing the limousine in pursuit. All his shots had just been warning ones. Once the mountain dogs called off the chase, Tomitake would start shooting at them soon enough. They had no chance of winning.
大鳥湾より追跡された封鎖線が突破されたならそれ以上はもう深追いするな。富武は射撃の名手だった。死に急ぐな。
どうする？行かせていいのか？
了解。こちら追跡を断念。起動する。
諦めたようだね。向こうは速度を落として。
あれだけの銃撃戦をしたのに相当の爆発をお見受けします。
訓練の賜物さ。
Tomitake, having slid back into the car, raised his fist in victory. He was as easygoing as ever, even after a gunfight. Satoko felt like he was finally getting to know Tomitake for the first time.
富武にご無事でしたか。連絡が取れず心配しておりました。
Tomitake was making a call from a telephone booth outside of Okonomiya. Booth's lines were on a different network from the one the mountain dogs had sabotaged. That was why he could make the call. Tomitake had called Tokyo immediately. Told Tokyo that there were spies from the Mountain Dogs within Tokyo's research division. That's how they found out where he was. They also told him he was captured, that he had escaped. Told him that they were fooled by the diversion, or on the mountain as they spoke. While he was captured, Major Takano, the ringleader, had hinted at the existence of masterminds she was working for, etc., etc. Explained everything he'd learned thus far.
入江機関の早急な鎮圧を。彼らはすでに地上での発砲を繰り返しており、このままでは村人に発覚するのも時間の問題です。番犬の緊急出動を強く要請します。
もしもし、調査部の岡だ。無事でよかった。番犬はすでに南沢地区の南方30キロで空中待機してる。こちらも上層部に鎮圧命令を求めていたのだが、石頭どもが事なかれ主義で渋りやがってな。だが君が無事ならば話が早い。君の話はすぐにトップに説明する。許可はすぐ出るだろう。20分以内に番犬は到着する。つい今、高野三佐と小野木兄に逮捕命令が出たぞ。入江機関の即時制圧と山犬への武装解除命令も出た。君のおかげだぞ。でかした。
Tomitake walked out of the telephone box.
話はつきましたか？
ええ、番犬部隊が鎮圧に緊急出動するそう。すでに近くに空中待機していて、20分ほどで吸収するそうです。
どの程度に強いんですか？その番犬という連中は。
山犬が機密保持のための多目的部隊だとしたら、番犬は戦闘のみに特化した精鋭部隊です。装備も人材も比べ物になりません。おそらくあっという間でしょうね。
Akasaka looked at his watch. About 12:30. Bloodhounds would arrive in about 20 minutes. Akasaka remembered how hungry he was. It's lunchtime already. He was brave enough. He would head to a noodle shop. By the time he was done, everything would have ended. The Mountain Dogs had fought well until the last possible moment. It was ending rather too soon. They were in an area where rice fields and residential areas mix. It was the border of Okonomiya. The sun was covered by a thin layer of silver clouds, and a cool breeze was blowing. It looked like it might even rain a little. The two of them couldn't even remember how many times their lives were threatened that day. They wanted nothing more than to let the rain soak their bodies. After a while, Akasaka spoke.
どうしますか、富武さん。
どうするって何をだい？
私、南沢へ戻ろうと思っています。まだみんな戦ってる。
そうだね。でもいいのかい？一度はくぐり抜けた視線だよ。
リカちゃんが待ってる。まだ約束は果たし終えていません。
なら戻ろう。僕も用事があってね、ちょうど戻ろうと思ってたんだよ。赤坂さんはヘリの旅の経験はあるかい？乗せてもらえることになってるんだ。
They watched the breeze blowing over the rice fields for a while, then returned to the bullet-ridden car. The car had to start up quickly. They drove back the way they came. It was only noon. Still plenty of time before the Watnagashi festival began. Clouds covered the sky, and suddenly it grew cool. It would rain in a bit. According to Tokunagi's intuition, he already knew that their enemy had broken through the blockade, but he hadn't told Takano about it. But then, it really didn't make any difference if she knew or not. He also wanted to reach the top of the mountain. Tokunagi was only thinking about one thing. Thinking about the enemy's commander who made the day so horrible for him. He just couldn't accept his defeat until he saw the enemy's commander face to face. The battle was already lost. They just had a princess who didn't think it had yet. The rest of the Mountain Dogs fell into the traps and ambushes. Tokunagi had ordered all units except his own to fall back from the front lines into the vehicles. The only ones left were the very determined princess and Tokunagi himself. A handful of exhausted members of the Mountain Dogs who could barely walk. Eventually, the slope became a little more gentle. Okanagi and his companions finally arrived at the storage shack of the forestry service. Club members were already aware that the mountain dogs had been almost totally annihilated. Both the numbers and strength of the dogs had fallen far below that of the club members. Therefore, when Okanagi saw his opponents lined up there to welcome him, he wasn't surprised. It was all the kids who'd driven the mountain dogs to destruction the entire day. They had also fought with everything they had. They overwhelmed us from start to finish. They used up all their stamina and were on their last legs as well. Still, their willpower kept them standing. Will born of the victor's honor which God granted only to the winners.
あるよ、おころぎ、トライさせなさい。
サンサ、よくもこんなざまの我々をこき使えるもんです。
何？私に逆らう気なの？
まさか逆らう気なんか最初からありませんやね。
Okanagi removed his communication unit, his taser, and all the heavy equipment he'd been carrying. He unbuttoned his shirt and told his men to stay put as he stepped forward. He strode forward about half the distance toward the club members.
山犬の大鳥ワンことおこのぎだ。お前らのリーダーに敬意を表する。名前を聞かせてくれ。
Club members looked at each other. One of them was a girl taller than the others. She couldn't be that old, but her hawk-like eyes were sharp as a veteran soldier's. Okanagi didn't know her circumstances. All those whose lives were threatened on a daily basis had eyes like that.
部長、園崎美音。
The girl stepped forward.
いや、年齢なんてどうでもいい。朝からの沖宮署での騒ぎからこの山での戦いまで、すべてお前の指揮なのか。
The golden answer, but her silence confirmed it more strongly than anything she could have said.
戦はお前らの勝ちだ。まだ負けてねえと思ってるのはうちのお姫様だけさ。もう今さらどうにもならねえ。富武は封鎖線を突破。沖宮にすでに到着して東京に連絡を取っただろう。鎮圧部隊がいつここにやってくるか知らねえが、それも時間の問題だ。笑いたきゃ笑え。爪ってやつさ。
おこのぎ、何をやってるの？その女は敵のリーダーよ。倒しなさい。
お姫様が何か言ってるが気にするな。
望みは何？
お前も大将、俺も大将だ。わかるな。
あいつ降参したんじゃないのか？
ペナにはわかる。あの人は今日敵の指揮をしていたんだよ。そして部下がみんなやられた。だから「はいそうですか」って言って負けを認めるわけにはいかないの。
我が身を犠牲にしてしか大軍の将は見そげないというのですか？
いいよ。あんたが納得するようにすればいい。
感謝するぜ。
Mion took a stance. Okanagi took a stance too. Though Okanagi was nothing like Akisaka, he was still a close combat specialist. Even when exhausted, there was no way Mion could defeat him. Kano thought so too. He thought Mion was underestimating Okanagi. Mion knew that she was the only one who could put him at ease. Okanagi readied, launched sharp from his waist, but Mion deflected to the side of their elbow, wrapped her arm underneath it, wrenching it back behind him, and forced it up into a hold. And she twisted his arm even further. Okanagi was certain she was going to snap a bone. It was an excellent technique. She took his arm in one flowing motion. It's clear that Mion's self-defense techniques weren't spur of the moment. However, she didn't break Okanagi's arm, but instead threw him onto the ground. She didn't deliver the final blow, but rather chose to look down on him. Okanagi got up quickly, took a stance once again, then swung his arm down. Mion avoided it effortlessly, just like she did before. She grabbed his arm and turned it around. They were in the same position as before. What happened then? She didn't break his arm, but threw him onto the ground and looked down on him. Hello, Avier. How's it going?
ミヨンってすげえ。向こうの隊長と互角に渡り合ってるぞ。オカナギ、武器を使いなさい。何をやってるの？行くぞ！
He had a stronger drive this time. Got home from dinner? Hope it was a good dinner. Cat Quest 2. Sounds lovely. I don't know if you can hear, but that's our cat having his own quest. He's got like one of those tubes in the hallway, and he's having some fun in it. He tried to kick right through her from a step and a half away. This time Mion stepped in to launch her own attack, jumping right towards the foot, trying hard to kick her, and kept herself low as she entered close range with Okanagi, shutting out his kicking leg, trying to kick her. Shutting out his leg, trying to kick her, so of course he went after her head. Okanagi raised his right arm to elbow her in the skull. This time, Mion rose up, using both hands to keep his arm from swinging down. Unlike the flowing motions from before, this was simply a contest of strength. His physique was overwhelmingly superior to hers, so she couldn't win that test of strength. Suddenly, Mion let go and allowed Okanagi's elbow to come down. Then she stepped to the side. It's a repeat of before. Okanagi's arm was held to his back and he ended up in the same position. What came after was different. Okanagi's face lowered as Mion lifted his arm high, and she swiftly brought her knee into his face. Exactly the technique that Okanagi told her about just earlier. Once again, he was down on the ground. Mion scoffed. Okanagi took it with a smile too. He wasn't trying to be humble, it's just his pure reaction.
そうだな。お前ほどの器なら、日本の不正規船部隊長なんてもったいないぜ。サスでもデルタでもスペツナズでも、どこでも最高の人材になれるだろうぜ。何しろ。
サス？デルタフォース？くだらないね。そんな退屈なところじゃ、私を飼いならせやしないよ。
そうだろうな。そうだろうよ。なら聞かせてくれ。お前ほどのやつなら何の隊長を望む？
隊長なんて興味ないね。部長でいいね。
長英国情報部あたり妥当だな。
ダメダメダメ。私がやりたい部長はたった一つ。南沢文庫の若部の部長だけさ。罰ゲームのない戦いなんてごめんだね。口先の魔術師前原圭一、カーリーモードの竜宮レナ、トラップ使いの里子に萌え落としのリカちゃん、そして期待の新人フルで羽生。これだけ揃ってなけりゃ世界のどこだろうと退屈だね。
勝てねえ。勝てねえよ。こんなやつが隊長だったんじゃ勝てるわけねえやね。
しっかりなさい。
Kado yelled at him, but Okanagi didn't hear it.
これでウォーミングアップはいいだろう。次の一撃でぶち抜いてやるぜ。当たったら死ぬぞ。覚悟しな。
キナ、あんたに似合いなさい。あんたが欲しいと思ってる決定的な最後をくれて。よく言ってくれ
た。よく言ってくれたぜ。
Okanagi took about 5 steps backwards and breathed deep. His body twisted as he gathered all his spirit into his right fist. Just as he said, this next attack will be for real, putting everything he had into just one final blow. Mion's eye narrowed her eyes, preparing to parry the blow with her side. The sky began to stir. They both felt raindrops in their foreheads.
行くぜ。殺すからな。殺しに来いよ。
あんたのお祈りが済んだらいつでも来な。
That one tense moment was suddenly brought to an end. He dashed forward from a low position, just like a runner from a starting line. He added the twist from his body into the blow. His right arm roared with all his power. A bolt of lightning punctuated that moment in time, burning the moment into both our eyes. That moment, Mion's stance hadn't changed at all. Now maybe she moved like lightning in the moment it struck. We had to recall the moment burned into our eyes to review the scene. Nagi had swung with his right fist, which had enough power to shatter Mion's bones. What if 100% of his power was directed back at him in a counterattack? When the lightning struck, Okanagi's body had been flying through the air. It's a legendary technique in Japanese martial arts passed down in Judo and Aikido, the air throw. It looks as one is being thrown without his opponent even touching him, a miraculous technique that occurs at lightning speed. Of all the techniques Mion possessed, it was the most sublime, advanced technique she could administer on the defeated General Okanagi. The feeling of freedom while flying in the air is more memorable than the impact of hitting the ground, supposedly. Okanagi hit the ground behind me, and a heavy rain suddenly began to fall. Just as it did, a massive helicopter appeared from the side of the mountain. The helicopter's rotor stirred up the air and blew away the raindrops like a tornado. The rotor sounded much like a tornado, too. A rope uncoiled from the rear of the helicopter, and soldiers came sliding down it one after another. The onlookers were stunned for a moment before they realized what they were seeing. It was the Bloodhounds. The Bloodhounds that Tomitake had called in. Having realized how bad the situation had become, Okanagi returned to the other members of the Mountain Dogs. Nothing was going their way anymore. The Mountain Dogs ran down the slope and disappeared into the woods. They dragged Takano with them, who couldn't understand what was going on. A voice echoed from a speaker attached to another helicopter circling around the mountain.
本日1230に入江機関の全権限は凍結され、上級司令部の直轄となった。また同時刻 上級司令部は慰霊機関全職員の武装解除を命じた。山犬中隊全隊員は直ちに武装解除し、入江診療所裏駐車場もしくは山頂資材置き場に集合せよ。これに応じない場合、国内法及び自衛隊法に基づき厳正に対処することをここに通告する。
Bloodhound members continued to slide down from the rope from the helicopter. Even at a glance, they were very different from the mountain dogs. They were armed more heavily, the guns they had were much larger. Such things clearly differentiated the two units.
これで私たちの勝ちですの？わかりませんのです。僕も初めてのことなので、勝ったのかわからないのです。
Satoko and Rika sat down and hugged each other. They both soaked in rain, but they just sat down in the mud. Shion stood solemnly in the rain as the leader of the winning team. The mountain dogs had abandoned the field. They all ran away with their tails between their legs. Ichi and Rena ran over to Mion.
ミオ。
みーちゃん、終わったね。
ああ、これで部活は終わりさ。
リカちゃんも無事、みんなも無事。みーちゃん、勝ち取れる最高の勝利を勝ち取ったんだよ。
ミオンがみんなを率いたんだ。ミオンのおかげの勝利さ。
Mion didn't seem to be listening to Keiichi and Rena. Instead, she mumbled to herself.
私さ、部活の罰ゲームって部活ってさ、残酷だよね。仲間で戦い合ってさ。つまりそれはその子がビリだってみんなが見下すことなんだよね。
見下してなんかいねえだろ。楽しく罰ゲームをしてそれでおしまいさ。
そう、罰ゲームで楽しく遊んで敗戦の賞の責任をさ、楽しくみんなで笑って、それでチャラにできるから好きなんだよね。負けた本人も含めてみんなで笑って。
誰も傷つかない。みんなで楽しく笑っておしまいにできる。
おこのぎってやつは私に投げ飛ばされて叩きのめされなきゃ自分の罪がさ。そりゃさ、今日何度もヤバい目にあったよ。殺されそうに何度もなったよ。でもさ、もう終わりでしょ。ゲームセットなんだよ。なのに彼らにはチャラにする罰ゲームがないんだね。
Mion might have realized something when she threw Okanagi. Ichi didn't think anyone else could understand that.
ミオンが何を言ってるのかわからねえ。もう忘れろ。あいつらはもう終わりさ。
そうだね。これでもうすべて
みんな生きてる。誰も怪我してない。今は最高のハッピーエンドを喜ぼうよ。
そうだな。誰もやられなかった最高のハッピーエンドじゃねえか。
If it hadn't confirmed Shion and Kasai's safety, they were correct. This was the happy ending that they'd all been fighting for. However, Mion was still thinking. She only understood the reason for that in the moment the thunder struck. As soon as the flash of lightning disappeared, her understanding vanished as well. All she could remember was that she knows something very important, and that shortly after, she completely forgot about it. She could only feel a great sense of loss. Bloodhounds soon surrounded the club members. First they thought the club members were their enemies, but when Tomitake appeared, he explained the whole situation. The commander of the Bloodhounds appeared to beg the club members not to say a word about anything, as it was a politically sensitive incident. It's amusing to see a man like that beg while carrying all those weapons. Of course, they had no intention of talking to anyone about it. Once it had ended, it all felt like a bad dream. On the following day, someone asked them what they'd been doing, might not have even remembered it. This day was that unrealistic for them. So even if they were asked, they wouldn't say a word.
リカちゃん、無事でよかった。
赤坂、プ
こっちも大成功だったよ。そっちもみんな無事かい？入江診療所はすでに彼らが制圧したそうだよ。山犬の隊員たちも続々と投降に応じてる。隠れていた入江先生ともう一人の少年も彼らに保護されたそうだよ。
監督も無事ですのね。よかったですわ。少年？はて、どなたでございましょうね。富田さんか岡村さんあたりが巻き込まれて怪我でもしたのかしら。さとこ、本当によかったのです。
Rika's smile made it clear on what she had gone through. Someone can only smile like that after a long and exhausting struggle. Satoko had no idea what that smile meant. How much time would be needed to make her understand. Still, Hirai will do something about it. Certain he'll bring Satoko's brother back home.
そうだ、さとこ。今日のお注射をしていないのではないです。お注射をしないとダメなのです。あ、そうでしたわね。こんな時にも注射をやめちゃいけないなんて面倒な話ですこと。
Satoko seemed to have no idea that her medication was connected to the syndrome. Perhaps she was already aware, but pretended not to be. Rika vowed to herself that no matter how long it took, she was going to witness with her own eyes the moment her best friend finally parted with their tragic past.
このお注射も日に2回で助かりますわよね。以前の3回の時は本当に大変でしたわ。
Satoko also has no idea that Satoshi was involved in the development of her medication. Yuri had said that Satoshi as a specimen has contributed much to Satoko's treatment. Even while asleep, Satoshi longed to ease the burden on Satoko. His feelings must have influenced Satoko's medicine somehow. Satoko had to inject herself in the stomach. For privacy, she ran into the grove of trees to give herself a shot. There was no danger in her doing so. One after another, the bloodhounds dropped down from the helicopters. Each helicopter must have carried at least 20 to 30 soldiers. One helicopter at the top of the mountain, two more halfway down the slope, just pouring out of all of them, leading to the impression that the entire mountain was under the bloodhounds' control. Nobody fired their weapons, even once. The mountain dogs had no choice but to surrender. It wasn't raining hard at all. The sky should clear up after 20 or 30 minutes. The volatile weather typical of early summer. Satoko soon returned and spoke to her best friend.
リカ、羽生さんの姿が見えませんわ。さっきまで一緒にいましたのに。羽生どこ？
I think that's where we're gonna call it. Oh, wrong one. Call it for tonight.